Mizatra miodiny anao ny tanikio, tsy misalasa mandefa ireo zavatso, mizarazara ny anjara masoandro fahasoavana anenika ny andro, tsy ho voatanisa raha ireo sorehetra fafina, manokatra ireo maraina vaovao, ny rivotra iainana miavao isan'andro, antokiny iaina hameno ny rano, ny avona milahatra sy ireo lemaka maitso mavana, tofatsiarovana sisatazana fani tutungana nyakatunire uribuni tukizai nalefaka tuzarita dupandavanu betaka katinyutanai tukuizan kanifasua chanyo kuwafani na uwe zani fit be allowed be Aru Deus abate saiu bem o anão vida lá vida não Aru Deus abate saiu bem.
Yeah. Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning, everybody. Bon dia. Salam. So we are starting the conference. So I will ask Kelly, Emmanuel, and Catherine to take place. So we'll be starting with a music performance. I'll get back to practicals afterward. But we have translation. So we'll be having translation to English, to French, and to Creole. So if I'm not mistaken, I think they are listed here. So English will be channel 1, French will be channel 15, and Creole will be channel 30. Yes? If you're having any difficulty with the translation materials, there's Natalie that is somewhere here. So you can always get back to her. And we'll start with art and music. Thank you.
Hey. Quand la scène dans l'esprit pour casser, c'est la terre Maurice qui nous tout finit. C'est langage créole qui nous tout causé. Mon frère, mon sœur, pas besoin de te père, Assim, te couler, te CV, tout ce qui fait à toi, c'est qui t'a été. Qui t'a un descendant sinois, africain, indien, te pas besoin à loin, te bien connaît, qui te l'équerre, les Mauritiens. Quand t'es blessé, t'as pas gagné le temps d'y demander. Disant qui, communauté qui peut utiliser. Nos différences, croyances, parfois, poussent nos lisiers. Quand la scène dans nous l'esprit pour casser. Non, nous n'est plus l'esclavage. Il est pour nous faire tapage. Assise derrière l'écran pour un manzisement, son CP exprime nous mécontentement. Ça, papi amène nous pli divan. Quand la scène dans de l'esprit pour casser. Mette la loi qui se clé. Tant qu'il me l'équait, continue battre. Mon pas couper pour exprimer une bonne vérité. Mon grand-maman dit Anting Hon et Kosiram. Mon cousin appelle Finn, mon cousine Baboulal. Mon cousin appelle Kodabux. Mon tréli africain médissant qui dans mon veine li mauricien. Mon mélangé. Sans même l'équerre mon identité. Mon fier de ce qui m'a été. Mon Assim c'est qui m'a été. Depuis mon la tête jusqu'à me pousse les pieds. Mon chagrin quand me trouve énorme. Honte c'est qui se dit. Quand la scène dans nous l'esprit pour casser. Mon frère, mon sœur. Pas croire qu'il est les plus verts ailleurs. Nous la terre même les extraordinaire. Mon pécose, nous la terre, nous la mer, exoban veut dire, mais ça aussi nous peut les sauts détruire. Quand la scène dans nous l'esprit pour casser. Me dire assez. Quand mon peuple besoin ensemble, ça, l'immense là, les plus jolis qui flairent flamboyant dans moi, décembre. C'est trop de faire nous croire, nous pensons en stase, mais nous tout, nous bien connaît. Vous n'êtes pas pour faire nonier dans nous l'intérêt, nous pouvons pousser l'eau, nous la place. Tout se peut vendre hors étranger. La loi, c'est ce petit monde qui l'y appliqué. Quand la scène dans nous l'esprit pour casser, me dire assez. Simi, quelque mort sans l'amour, pépissin des classes. Donne la scène un peu l'espace. Corruption, discrimination, division. Il l'est pour qui tout ça là est na haine, finition. Mauricien, il assez ramasse baiser. C'est dans l'unité qui nous peut prospérer. Motisil, te l'équerre, il assez glorieux. Nous plus qui un pion qui se bousait quand il y a élection. Mon peuple, c'est la justice qui nous méritait. Ran, mon peuple, c'est qui se sont cette iniquité. Retourne mon la terre, cette dignité. Retourne mon peuple, cette dignité. Retourne-lui, cette dignité. Retourne-nous, nos dignités. Merci. Merci beaucoup. Merci Emmanuel, Catherine, Emmanuel et Sedley. Et moi, j'espère qu'il m'est sans un passé. Nous avons une dignité et nous bisons la guerre pour nous dignité. Pays là pour nous ça. Nous tous, nous dans nos places ici. Nous bien réaliser que ça a l'œuvre l'ennemi. Merci.
Correct. Okay. I'll switch back to Creole. Bonjour tout le monde. Juste une petite affaire pratique. Et si tout le monde qui est la traduction, correct, si correct, nous lève nous pouce. So, si en anglais peut moi correct, nous lève nous pouce, nous dire correct. Yep. Français correct. Ok. Maurice créole, me faisait correct. C'est aillé. Alors, je me présente moi-même. Je m'appelle Stéphane Guya. Vice-président de l'association CARES, qui organise sa conférence qui nous appelle la crise écologique, changement radical, PVNI, et que sa conférence aujourd'hui là, elle est organisée par plusieurs organisations. Donc, il y a un Center for Alternative Research and Studies, il y a All Employees Confederation, il y a General Workers Federation, il y a Federal of Public Sector Unions, Small Planters Association, Eco-Sud, People's Cooperative Renewable Energy Society Limited, Rodrigues Workers Federation, Women in Work and Production, Nature Rights Coalition, and Rodrigues Government Employees Association. Donc, au nom de tout ça, l'organisation-là, je souhaite la bienvenue. Et des trois remerciements parce que sa conférence-là, il peut faire aussi pour coup de main et que si pour beaucoup de camarades volontaires, bénévoles. Donc, il y a l'équipe Nathalie Rose qui peut assurer traduction. Vous êtes ici, merci pour vous. Donc, là-dedans, il y a Ashwin, Babita, Divesh, Rajiv, Kashvini. Il y a aussi l'équipe théâtre, Serge Constantin. Donc, je ne vais pas vous dire non parce que moi aussi, je pour rater. Mais toute l'équipe de l'ensemble, c'est l'équipe technique qui vraiment aide nous, assiste nous pour qui nous capable organiser sa conférence aujourd'hui là. Merci pour vous. Et on a Sébastien Sauvage sur l'équipe qui peut assis live. Donc là, un moment qui nous peut causer, nous en live, les réseaux sociaux. Il y a un volontaire dans l'équipe CARES lui-même. Et qu'après, un remerciement spécial à tous les participants, les délégués. Donc, dans la salle, là, nous avons plusieurs délégués depuis plusieurs pays. Il y en a depuis Rodrigues. Donc, si les Rodrigues peuvent mettre des bouts, faire connaître qu'ils sont là. Donc, nous avons des camarades depuis La Réunion. Si vous peuvent mettre des bouts, faire connaître qu'ils sont là. C'est ailleurs. Nous avons des camarades depuis Seychelles. Donc, nous avons des camarades depuis Madagascar. Nous avons des camarades depuis Como. Nous avons des camarades depuis Zanzibar. Nous avons des camarades depuis l'Afrique du Sud. Nous avons des camarades depuis Namibie. Derrière là-bas. Nous avons des camarades depuis Swaziland. Nous avons des camarades depuis Zambie. Nous avons des camarades depuis Tanzanie. Nous avons des camarades depuis Kenya. La liste est longue. Nous avons des camarades depuis Mozambique. Nous avons des camarades depuis Sénégal. Nangadef. Nous avons des camarades depuis Philippines. Nous avons des camarades depuis Danemark. Nous avons des camarades depuis la Suède. Ok, vous ne pouvez pas quoi arriver. Nous avons des camarades depuis les États-Unis. Correct. Donc, ces petits affaires pratiques aussi, quand on rentre, j'espère que tout le monde camarade a un badge comme ça, donc nous tenons l'enregistrement à l'entrée. Et juste pour rappel, nous avons une boîte de donation, donc c'est nos camarades qui ont envie aussi de faire une contribution volontaire. Vous êtes bienvenus pour faire une contribution volontaire qui cares pour servir justement dans différentes activités qui nous fait. Et nous avons dans ce sac, nous avons un carton normalement. Donc là-dedans, je peux mettre une boîte à disposition. Donnez une seconde. Donc, et dans sa boîte là, nous allons poser la même. Si on a une question, au fur et à mesure qui, donc, nous intervenant principal, ce sera John Bellamy Foster. Donc, si vous avez une question, au fur et à mesure, vous avez notre lit et mettre-le dans sa boîte là. Et là, parce que c'est juste une question les temps, parce qu'il nous peut vise pour terminer à 1h l'après-midi. Donc là, nous guettons un coup de comment la journée pour dérouler. Donc là, John Bellamy Foster, il a pick and choose depuis sa boîte là. Et là, il peut répondre dans la mesure du possible, maximum à une question qu'il peut gagner. Et dépendant de comment nous la journée pour dérouler, nous pouvons aussi ouvrir l'espace pour qu'il y ait une discussion en plénière et qu'il nous ait des questions depuis l'audience. Donc, moi, je demande Fanny Rangasamy depuis Maurice, Juliane Meunier depuis Rodrigues, Idéal Mwanza depuis Madagascar et Bruce Begri depuis l'Afrique du Sud. Si vous avez rejoint nous le panel, donc vous êtes pour nous discuter pendant sa journée là. Donc si vous êtes capable toujours rejoindre sa panel là. Et là, sans plus tarder, je pour invite Ashok Soupron, qui est président de l'association CARES, pour adresser un mot d'ouverture et que mot pour... Ouais, correct. Après, nous continuons. Merci.
Stéphane, tu peux dire, il vous demande moi parle trop long. I spent the night to decide in which language I need to talk this morning. So I've decided to talk a bit of Creole and a bit of English. My French is not very good. CARES is an association regrouping activists. And nous sommes activistes qui sont engagés dans promouvoir la justice sociale et économique. Nous sommes activistes qui sont engagés dans promouvoir la justice climatique. Nous sommes activistes qui sont engagés dans défendre le principe de l'État séculier. Mais nous, sommes activistes, pareil comme la plupart d'entre eux qui là, il y a une chose qui est profonde en nous, c'est nous l'amour et c'est nous dédication pour défendre la vie. Nous faisons décider depuis plusieurs années pour faire la question du sauvegarde de la vie, pour faire la question de pour sauvegarder les conditions de la reproduction de la vie comme un élément central dans l'activisme social, dans l'activisme politique, dans l'activisme dans différents milieux. La vie. La vie, c'est ça qui au centre menace aujourd'hui. Sa conférence qui nous peut faire là, c'était une conférence qui marque aussi l'ouverture de l'école résidentielle qui nous peut ENA ensemble avec des délégués qui sont de différents pays. Mais comme notre tradition était, nous avons envie qui ban différents dimoun qui viennent sur quatre coins du monde, nous ban différents professeurs qui viennent, nous avons différents activistes qui viennent, aussi joignent les autres activistes, les autres monde mauriciens, pour nous avoir l'essence commune. La défense de la vie et la défense de la reproduction des conditions de la vie, c'est le cœur de tout le combat. Parce que jamais, dans l'histoire de l'humanité, dans l'histoire, les temps biologiques, jamais dans l'histoire, les temps géologiques, cette question-là est aussi centrale et aussi critique que ça. Nous parlons là aujourd'hui pour entrer en détail dans tout bon rapport scientifique qui publié l'eau, danger et l'imminence et détérioration de la condition climatique au niveau planétaire. Je ne vais pas besoin rentrer dans les détails des bons rapports qui sont publiés, qui peut démontrer qu'ils nous dépassent plusieurs frontières, les planetary boundaries. Je ne vais pas besoin rentrer dans les détails pour expliquer qui nous à la veille de une mass extinction. Mais dans ce même moment, qui nous dans l'état critique, et là aussi un espoir. Nous pays, Maurice, nous un pays qui est à peu près 400 bananes. Avant mon monde, dans mon là, tu là, nous avons resource person pour nous, pour des 3 jours, nous faisons un rappel qui fait à peu près 400 bananes depuis que l'esclavage est répandu dans plusieurs régions de la planète. Et nous, pays ici, nous régions ici, qui est Maurice, qui est l'océan Indien, qui est Madagascar, qui est région Zanzibar, qui est région Mozambique, qui est l'Afrique, nous connaissons sa période de colonisation et de l'esclavage. Et qui fait un mauvais soulève aujourd'hui dans sa conférence-là. Parce que peut-être, pour nous comprendre profondément, toute sa crise climatique et toute sa crise écologique-là, les sortis aussi depuis une vision les mondes, depuis une vision la vie. Quand ils trouvent les êtres humains comme un objet, qui sont capables d'acheter, vendre, qui sont capables de faire vivre nos propriétés, qui sont capables d'enchaîner, amener le bateau, fusiller, qui sont capables d'amener de marcher des esclaves dans Pamplemousse et exposer pour vendre. Sa vision, le monde là, this is one of the root cause of the problem that we are having. C'est-à-dire que nous trouvons du monde comme un objet. Pas juste du monde. Nous pays Maurice aujourd'hui. Il y a un pays qui il y a 400 bananes quand il est dans la société humaine. Mais c'est un des pays qui est capable de servir comme l'exemple quand il est dans les plus destructions de la biodiversité sur sa planète là. Le colonialisme, l'esclavagisme, il marche avec sa des caractéristiques. Quand il trouve les êtres humains et toutes les composantes de la nature comme un objet qui est capable d'exploiter. Les êtres humains, hommes et femmes, les êtres humains, hommes, femmes et enfants, et les composantes de la nature, la terre, la forêt, l'océan, ils viennent objet de convoitise pour un puissant économiquement. Mais pendant sa période-là, et quand il après, il y a des gens qui ont levé, il y a des gens qui ont résisté, mais ils ont fusillé. Ils ont coupé les coups comme Ratsi Tatan. Ils ont exécuté comme Anna de Bengale. Beaucoup de gens, à l'époque-là, ils trouvaient qu'il y a un problème dans ce système-là. Avec l'émergence révolution industrielle et l'émergence société capitaliste, il y a un grand mouvement qui questionne ce système-là. qui vient dire qu'il y a un problème. Ce mouvement-là, il fait un achievement. Mais il y a un achievement insuffisant. Vous vous trouvez dans la salle aujourd'hui, exprès. Nous avons différents. Photo, Che Guevara. Nous avons John Baez. Nous avons plaisir, ban images qui aussi démontraient la vague d'un deuxième mouvement dans l'époque importante dans l'histoire de l'humanité. Qui ce mouvement-là, mon corps, si nous besoin faire rétrospect, nous besoin de nous une médaille. Parce que sans données scientifiques qui nous connaissent à ce là, je t'y trouve loin. Je t'y réalisé qu'il nous besoin la paix. Je t'y réalisé qu'il nous besoin l'amour. Je t'y réalisé que la vie est importante. 50 ans de cela. Dans Woodstock, contre la guerre Vietnam, dans le mouvement de décolonisation, ce mouvement-là, il pose une question qui est bizarre. Mais seulement, ce mouvement-là, il est capable qu'il est ici, qu'il est dans les autres pays du monde. Nous capables pas fin réussir. Mais la question qui est posée, est-ce qu'il nous tient tort? C'est une des bonnes questions qui nous pose John Bellamy Foster, qui est un quelqu'un qui me lit depuis assez longtemps et qui finit digging dans la pensée de un grand penseur et finit d'écrire un joli livre pour expliquer-nous qui manière nous arrive dans une situation que les scientifiques peuvent dire nous résiste 12 années. On pense que les peuples dans nos régions, dans Maurice, dans l'océan Indien, dans la région de l'Afrique australe, dans l'hémisphère sud, qui nous n'a pas responsable pour une émission, mais une émission carbone, une émission à effet de gaz toxiques, qui est responsable global warming, il sortit surtout depuis un pays de nous, mais un petit poignet, une compagnie qui naît dans l'époque de l'esclavage, qui naît dans le système qui nous appelle le capitalisme primitif. Mais nous, dans un moment clé, nous devons comprendre qu'il est arrivé. Pour vous terminer avec une histoire que moi je raconter. Vous connaissez quand je suis petit, mon maman tient tout le temps dit à moi, quand elle casse une feuille carré poulet, ou bien un ditin dans un jardin, qui te besoin de demander exquise quand tu peux casse li à soir. C'est à l'époque-là, je suis dans sa génération là, aussi. Très scientifique. Je dis, ben, maman pas là. Je dis, ben, il faut le femme là. Mais aujourd'hui, mon mesure dire que sa génération là, c'est plus clairvoyant que nous. Je te comprends que toute forme de la vie est important. Que le tout dans la terre, tout dans l'univers, dans la cosmologie, tout connecté. Tout est dans la vie. Nous, un seul, nous formons partie de tout qui est dans la vie. Et c'est un mouvement pour la vie qui nous besoin mettre sur la table. Pour adresser sa question, qui un scientiste peut dire nous avons 12 années. Et là même certains scientistes disent nous reste seulement 18 mois. Je dis à si à ce là. Beaucoup d'entre nous ici, ils participent dans un mouvement pour défendre la place. Nous connaissons comment un pilier central dans le mouvement arrête cocaïne ou la place. Non? Nous sommes habitués 3 fois d'une crase barrage, l'eau pomponnette. Nous faisons la désobéissance civile. Nous n'en prenons que tout ça. Des fois, 3 fois, nous crase barrage, mais 3 fois, c'est une vague qui crase barrage là. Vague qui crase barrage là, en grande partie, parce que la mer, ce niveau est monté. Quand la mer, ce niveau monté, même pas quelques millimètres, quand la houle tapait, il rentre plus loin. Nous ne comprenons, là, paradoxalement, quel est l'effet du changement climatique. Quand nous avons un cyclone qui traverse Mozambique, qui rentre jusqu'à Zimbabwe, nous comprenons qu'il y a des changements climatiques. Aujourd'hui, nous, dans Maurice, car l'autre semaine, pour déclarer une élection générale. Est-ce que ça, ce n'est pas une question qui est centrale? C'est-à-dire, est-ce que n'importe qui gouvernement dans n'importe qui société, pas qui vise à faire question de la vie, la promotion et la défense des conditions de reproduction de la vie une centrale. Et pour les enfants qui peuvent l'élever, est-ce que numéro 1, c'est pas garanti que nous, les enfants, ayons le droit à un futur? J'espère que cette conférence-là ouvert les balises des discussions, ouvert différents paramètres des discussions, et qui bien vite donne une liaison choisir et que nous ayons une liaison pour comprendre comment choisir. C'est ça le plus difficile, mais nous espérons nous pouvons contribuer dans cette tâche-là. Merci.
Merci, Ashok. Et Ashok, il met l'emphase, la vie, et que moi réalisé qu'il m'a fait un grave oubli. On peut remercier mes camarades qui t'ont fait la musique. Donc, tu as Kelly, Emmanuel, Catherine en premier. Après, tu as Emmanuel qui peut danser. Et tu as aussi un Ragalayam, donc un groupe qui fait la musique. Et moi, tu peux demander d'applaudir mes camarades là. Parce que nous, dans le mouvement dans lequel nous étions, dans CARES, nous croyons qu'il a les centrales pour connecter nous avec le vivant. Donc, c'est un vecteur extrêmement important pour connecter nous entre nous, connecter nous avec le passé, connecter nous avec qui nous étions, connecter nous avec la terre dans laquelle nous vivons là. Et c'est pour ça que dans nos activités, dans nos mouvements, là, il y a une place centrale. Dans les années 60, la musique, là, en général, l'important dans justement pour nous capables d'organiser un mouvement. Donc, sans plus tarder, moi, je peux demander camarade John Bellamy Foster, s'il est capable de rejoindre nous l'estrade. Moi, je aussi pour demander les 4 panélistes, s'ils sont capables de rejoindre nous. Est-ce qu'il y a un camarade qui est capable d'assurer qu'il y a des lots, la table, et que nous aussi, besoin un 16 pour John Bellamy Foster. Donc, brièvement, enfin, moi personnellement, à chaque indiali là, moi extrêmement content et ému qui me préside ça la journée là aujourd'hui parce qu'il comment à chaque John Bellamy Foster est courant qu'il est représenté, c'est extrêmement important, crucial dans influence nous penser, nous façon get bonnes affaires et je crois qu'ils ont dit quand Ashok peut dire qu'il a question climatique, les centrales, il n'est plus suffit qu'on nous peut mobiliser, qui nous peut une compréhension scientifique des bonnes affaires. Nous avons besoin d'une compréhension globale, scientifique, pour nous connaître que ça nous taper, pour qu'il y ait résonance, que ça nous taper, pour que nous soyons capables efficaces, pour nous gagner une transformation sociale, pour nous gagner une transformation société, pour nous capables de renverser la tendance qui peut représenter une menace pour la vie aujourd'hui. Est-ce qu'il est possible de gagner un 16? C'est un camarade qui a organisé un 16, un coup. Yeah, merci. Et donc, juste pour dire un peu dérouler comment nous pouvons faire. Donc, ça veut dire John Bellamy Foster, il peut causer pour 25 minutes à peu près. Et après ça, nous pouvons nous prendre 4 discussants. Donc, il y a Fanny, Idéal, Bruce avec Julienne. Donc, je pouvons prendre 3 minutes chacun pour interagir, pour donner notre perspective, même dire aussi depuis notre réalité par rapport à ce que John Bellamy Foster dit. Et que là, John Bellamy Foster prend 10 minutes pour lui répondre à ce qu'ils ont dire. Et que là, nous pouvons ouvrir l'espace à panel, mais m'encourage, mes camarades, qui ont une question aussi, si vous avez noter, mettre dans la boîte. Et que là, à partir, par rapport à l'état, nous pouvons guetter comment nous pouvons organiser pour dire les bonnes questions. Et que là, à la fin, chaque panéliste, je prends 1 minute. Donc, John Bellamy Foster pour répondre à une question qu'il a gagnée en plénière. Je prends 1 minute pour faire une concluding note. Et que là, John Bellamy Foster prend 10 minutes pour conclure. Et que là, nous vise pour terminer à 1 heure avec des aînés. Donc, moi, je demande tous camarades si nous sommes capables d'assurer qu'il nous reste jusqu'à 1 heure. Et juste pour les participants internationaux, quand nous terminons, si nous sommes capables de rester ici, dans Compound, parce qu'il est là, nous prenons un transport qui pourra amener nous dans le sud, côté nous, l'école pour continuer. Donc, John, the floor is yours. You can, yeah, okay. Do you want this mic or this one?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here, and particularly to be in Mauritius. And I want to tell you why. I think does this work?
It works, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm particularly glad to be in Mauritius because we often say that it's in Mauritius that ecology was invented. And I'm sure a lot of you know this, that in the late 18th century, scientists, okay, I'll start over. It's in Mauritius that we often say that ecology was invented. In the late 18th century, there were discussions among scientists about climate change. They were talking about local climate change and how the local atmosphere, local climates, and rainfall, etc., were affected by deforestation. And this was a very important discussion in England and in France. And in France, it was affected by the ideas of the physiocrats. And of course, Mauritius was one of those islands that had been seen by Europeans as an Eden. And when they discovered it, and the Dutch and the French and others had immediately proceeded to destroy native species and to carry out deforestation and so on. But in the late 18th century, the French colonial administration in Mauritius started to apply some of the new ideas about nature, about the relation of deforestation to the climate, and for at least a few years tried to implement conservation, reforestation, and so on. And the analysis was quite sophisticated. And we think of this often, and this was explained in a work by Richard Grove, the historian Richard Grove, called Green Imperialism. He spent much of the book is devoted to Mauritius, and he explained how the colonial administration had implemented the first really sophisticated environmental policies involving climate. Of course, issues of climate were very different than today. But it's important to understand that this was a colonial administration, of course, and as Ashok points out, this was a period of extreme exploitation, social injustice, and slavery. and Mauritius was caught up in that. The same colonial administrators that were implementing an environmental policy like the world had never seen before, and that was to be very influential in the ecological thought. We're also carrying out, we're also implementing slavery and exercising most extreme forms of colonial rule. So you have, on the one hand, a recognition of natural necessity in the late 18th century in Mauritius, and the need for conservation, the need for ecological policy. The word ecology, of course, did not yet exist. And at the other hand, you had a colonial rule, a colonial capitalist rule that was carrying out slavery, some of the worst forms of exploitation. And so Mauritius raises a fundamental question for us. One of the themes that I wanted to bring out in this talk is that revolutions, and we could say ecological revolutions, happen generally when the struggle for freedom coincides with the struggle over necessity, over material necessity. When these two things come together, we begin to see revolutionary situations, and this is true all through history. In Marxian theory, Friedrich Engels, borrowing from Hegel, talked about the freedom of necessity. And this became very important for Marxist theory, that freedom is not opposed to necessity, that revolutionary situations come about when these two struggles, these two imperatives meet each other. And we're in such a time now. Now, I want to refer briefly to Emanuel Wallerstein, who died at the end of August. And some of you, most of you probably have heard of him because he's the founder of world systems theory, which is the most influential way of looking at inequality, looking at the capitalist system as a world economy, looking at the world as one that's divided into a center, semi-periphery, and periphery. Many of the ideas that we use come from Wallerstein, as well as many others, but he was the most influential world systems theorist. And in 1974, when he wrote his masterpiece, the first volume of the modern world system, in the very first paragraph, he talks about social structures, and he talks about coral reefs. And he says structures, he means social structures, are those coral reefs of human relations which have a stable existence over long periods of time, but structures too are born, develop, and die. He was using coral reefs as a metaphor for social structures, saying social structures, social systems with particular structures can last for a very long time, but they're born, they develop, and they perish. I was struck by this passage reading it recently because Wallerstein had no idea, in using the metaphor of coral reefs for social structures to explain what social structures are, that we would be in a situation now, some 50 years later, where social structures, the dominant social structure that he was concerned with the capitalist world economy, is actually destroying coral reefs globally, and that the capitalist system itself is in crisis, partly as a result. So these two areas, he used coral reefs as a metaphor. He had no idea that there was actually a relation, but we know now there is. Capitalism is destroying coral reefs all over the world. If you have any doubt about this, read the IPCC's report from last week, September 25th, on the ocean and cryosphere, where they deal in detail with what's happening in coral reefs, including discussing Mauritius. And this notion of capitalism destroying coral reefs takes us to the larger question of capitalism versus the Earth system. We find that the social system in which we live is in conflict with the entire Earth system. That's hard to deny nowadays, but there are different ways of looking at it. And unfortunately, the dominant way of looking at this question is not very useful. The mainstream liberal approach, the received ideology, and this pervades social science generally, and also the media, sees this in terms of two externally related spheres, two different spheres. Over here, there's a sphere which we call the capitalist world economy. Over here, there's a sphere called the Earth, or the Earth system, and they understand there's some conflict between this sphere of the world economy and this sphere over here of the Earth system, and that capitalism is bearing down on it. And this is the way things are presented. And the relation between the world economy, the economic structure, and the planet is seen as it's a relationship between two spheres that are co-equal, and the relationship is determined by culture or values, and particularly individual values. The general approach sees then capitalism as naturalized. It's a sphere just like the Earth itself. It's a natural existence. It's not. It's inviolate. You cannot question it. It's just as important as the Earth itself. It's a very idealist vision. In social science, they talk about it this way. It denies natural science, because natural science doesn't see things this way. But that's all right, because in the liberal tradition, social science has nothing to do with natural science. They're completely separated from each other. So the social scientists can go on and talk about the economy as though it exists separately. There's an example I always use of, there was a debate in Nature, one of the leading scientific magazines, and William Nordhaus, who later got the Nobel Prize in economics for his work on ecology, which was a travesty, said that if we have climate change, there's like only, by the end of the 21st century, we'll only lose 1% of total economic growth. And so there was no reason to do anything about it. And so natural scientists wrote back and they said, well, and he actually was talking about a 6-degree increase in global average temperature like the IPCC had said. And he said, well, that will only result in a 1% decrease in economic growth. Well, the natural scientists came back and they said, we'd all be dead. The economists were saying it will only have a minor effect on the economy. The natural scientists were saying there's quite a likelihood there would not be human beings left on the Earth. Certainly industrial civilization, the economy wouldn't exist. And it's only in our society that these two realms of social science and natural science are so separated, and it allows the economy to be treated as though it's autonomous and its own separate sphere, and not to be questioned. Now, the classical Marxian view, which is a materialist view, it has a different approach. And the view that, say, Karl Marx developed, Friedrich Engels, there were other thinkers at the time, but because they were historical materialists, because they had both a materialist conception of nature and a materialist conception of history, they were able to deal with this relationship in a way that conforms actually with modern science. and that distinguishes their analysis from almost all later liberal thought. Indeed, from Marx, much of later Marxist thought as well. But Marx approached things as a materialist. And so he started out with the beginning of the German ideology and said, with a materialist perspective, he said, human beings exist within the physical world, that we live because we live only by virtue of being able to produce the food we need, and so on. And so our life coincides with our production. And human beings relate to nature through their production. And this is the beginning point of the whole materialist approach to social science. And Marx went on and developed this in various ways in Capital, but he argued in the first volume of Capital, he defined the labor and production process as the social metabolism, as the metabolic relation between human beings and nature, that all species have a metabolism that connects them to nature. The way in which we take nutrients and resources from the earth and live off of them. All species have a metabolism. Human beings have a social metabolism through production. And the labor and production process, the whole production process, is nothing but the metabolic relationship between human beings and the earth in its most fundamental form. And but Marx said, under capitalism, this is alienated. We talk a lot about the alienation of labor, but you couldn't have the alienation of labor without the alienation of nature. Why is that? Well, in order to create a workforce that has no way of living but by selling their labor, capitalism first had to expropriate the land. It had to, and this is discussed in his treatment of previous expropriation or primitive accumulation in Capital, that the whole system demanded from the first, and still demands, that people be removed, most people be removed from any connection to land or nature in general, to the material means of production, which have their basis in natural systems. And while human beings in all societies live by appropriating from nature, that means all societies have property of one kind or another that's based on appropriation. In capitalism, the system promotes expropriation of nature and human beings. That means expropriation means to exchange without equivalent or without reciprocity. It means a kind of robbery. And the system, although the inner dynamic of capitalism is based on exploitation within a context of what we call, formally free labor, equal exchange, the parameters of the system and the basis of the system require expropriation and robbery to make it work. Now, so this is all built into Marx's theory. The whole theory of class and capitalism and accumulation is rooted in a conception also of how we relate to nature in our production, which is a metabolic relationship. Marx took the concept of metabolism, which had just been developed in German science in particular, and he was particularly influenced by the German soil scientist, well, the German chemist, Justus von Liebig. And he took the notion of metabolism and he applied it to human society, arguing that we have a universal metabolism of nature. That was Marx's term. But within that, human beings create a society through production, which is a social metabolism with nature. And under capitalism, we alienate that social metabolism. And in making this concrete, Marx talked about the metabolic rift, or the irreparable, rift in the social metabolism between human beings and nature. And so the term irreparable rift actually was taken, I think, from Lucretius and the definition of death in Lucretius. Marx was an Epicurean scholar as well. But this notion of an irreparable rift in the metabolism between human beings and nature, which was created by capitalism, and he discussed how the nutrient cycle was disrupted as food and fiber carrying the soil nutrients like nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus were shipped to the cities, and then it became urban waste and destroyed or damaged the environments of the cities, while also degrading the soil, because the soil lost the soil nutrients, and so the reproduction of the soil was broken. And that became a basis for looking at the ecological problem in general. And it's how we look at things now, but Marx was way ahead of his time in that respect. He ended up influencing some of the later developments. And in capitalism, this takes a very extreme form, because capitalism emphasizes the what we call exchange value, or the value form that is capital. It's all about accumulating abstract value, while use value, the natural material use values, are really not of any ultimate significance for capital. What's important for a system based on capital accumulation or valorization is the pursuit of abstract value. You see it in terms of money, but the system doesn't really care about the natural material use values. So the system values, let's say, values only money, only exchange value, only abstract value, and not use values. Use values, natural material use values, though, are important in leveraging value for capital. So they try to monopolize land, economic interests monopolize land and other resources in order not for the land itself, not for nature itself, but simply in the pursuit of abstract value ad infinitum, and growth in these terms forever. The result is a kind of robbery system, as Liebig called it. And Marx also referred to it as a robbery system, but introduced the notion of the metabolic rift. And this means a kind of disruption in biogeochemical cycles. The rift is a disruption, and the biogeochemical cycles are what we depend on. In the Marxist view, the economy doesn't exist out here as a separate sphere, or the society, and the earth is over here. Rather, our society, our system of production, our social structures exist within the natural systems. We are part of that. Human beings are part of nature, and our society creates an emergent level within that. So we have our own social laws that we generate that are not natural laws, that create other kinds of principles, but ultimately we cannot escape the fact that we exist within the Earth system, within the planet, within the realm of natural law, and this is basic to Marx's analysis. So he said we're destroying the Earth, and we're doing it because of a system of class, because of a system of exploitation. They are integral, they're integral to each other. This is what Ashok was saying as well. So what were Marx's solutions? He said that we have to maintain the world for the chain of human generations. Those were his words, the chain of human generations. That's the criteria. The criterion is maintaining the world for future generations, and that's exactly how we define sustainability. His concept of sustainability was the most radical we've ever seen, because he said no one owns the earth. He said all the countries in the world taken together don't own the earth. We only hold it in trust for future generations. And so he argued that in the future, the notion of private property in the earth will be seen as irrational as private property in human beings, that is slavery. Marx argued that when he defined socialism in volume 3 of Capital, he said it is the rational regulation of the metabolism between human beings and nature. I'm slightly paraphrasing, but it's almost exact. The rational regulation of the metabolism between human beings and nature in such a way, by the associated producers, in such a way as to conserve energy and promote human development. Marx's whole analysis of socialism points to a theory of sustainable human development, where these issues are integrated. It's the nature of his critique, his materialist critique, prevented him from saying society is out here, the earth is out there. He understood that these relations were completely connected. The struggle for freedom then was also a struggle for how we relate to the earth. Now, that takes us to, that's the nature of the materialist critique. That takes us to the present. In the present world, what are we experiencing in the 21st century? We're experiencing a world that has what I call an epochal crisis, in the sense that it's both an ecological crisis and an economic crisis, and they're actually related to each other. They're not exactly the same thing, but they cannot be separated from each other. And we have a situation where in the rich nations, but also all over the world, there is an overaccumulation of capital. And this has resulted in the development. This is associated with the domination of monopoly finance capital. It's associated with the enormous waste that's produced in the capitalist economy. They don't call it that. They've actually tell us that this is the most efficient economy in the world. But if you look around, you open your eyes and you look at the reality, it's not efficient at all. We are carrying out unnecessary labor to produce useless goods, and in the process destroying the whole global environment in order to promote value, wealth, accumulation for a very small portion of the world's population. And the system, its main contradiction of this system is the overaccumulation of capital, which is rooted in human equality. The capital is not investing because markets are saturated, and they need to promote more waste, more throwaway goods in order to keep the system going. I can't explain the dynamic of this to you entirely now because we're trying to talk about the ecological problem. But the exploitation is severe. There's new forms of imperialism that have developed in this context in the 21st century. And maybe we'll be able to discuss that later on. But we also have an Earth system crisis that's related to this. And if you look at, okay, with under business as usual, if nothing changes, the IPCC says that 2 degrees Celsius increase in global average temperature is what we call the point of no return, or the point of irreversibility. What they mean by that is that if we get to that point, there's more than a 50% chance that the world will spin out of control. We will not be able to reverse the process anymore. The reason is because the positive feedbacks will come into play, the melting of the Arctic ice, the melting of the permafrost, all of the sea level rise, everything will at that point be beyond our ability to reverse it, and then we will spin in. There's no way once you get to 2 degrees Celsius to prevent the world from spinning into 3 degrees increase in global average temperature, or 4 degrees, or 5 or 6. 4 degrees could happen in this century, but scientists are saying, and it's well established, that if we get to 4 degrees, which could happen in the lifetime of people in this room, 4 degrees increase, the whole basis of human industrial civilization will go. So it's a very serious matter. It's, you know, there is, and right, if we keep with business as usual, at this point, we will hit 2 degrees Celsius increase in 15 years, in 2035. If you look at the trillionth ton.org, and the trillionth ton is the material marker that the IPCC has established for a 2 degrees increase, they will tell you exactly what month, day, and hour, and minute we, at the present rate of emissions, we are likely to hit 2 degrees Celsius. But the point is, it's only 15 years away. Now, if what the IPCC report said, the 2018 report said, is that in order to, avoid disaster, we not only have to stay short of 2 degrees Celsius increase, we have to stay short of 1.5 degrees Celsius. For one reason, the sea level rise, that if we don't stay short of 1.5 degrees, the coral reefs will go, the sea level rise will destroy most of the small islands in the earth and flood coastal regions. We will have hundreds of millions of refugees and so on. So we want to stay below 1.5 degrees, and there's another reason for that, is that we have to get down to 350 parts per million in, we're now at 415 of carbon in the atmosphere, in order to actually stabilize things. And if we stop short of 1.5 degrees, it's still possible to do that. If we go much further, it becomes more problematic. So it's a very, very serious problem. Now, to avoid 1.5 degree increase in global average temperature, we have to reach peak emissions globally in 2020. I don't know if you know what year it is. It's 2019, and 2020 is a few months away. And but the IPCC models say we need to peak carbon emissions globally in 2020. No doubt they'll push that back a little bit, and then we have to reduce carbon emissions by 45% globally by 2030. And then we have to reach 0 net carbon emissions by 2050. Otherwise, we're going to go past 1.5 degrees increase. We'll probably go past 2 degree increase. It's very serious. Unfortunately, the IPCC is good on science, but terrible on social science. So that's because of the domination, the dominant ideology, and the way our system is set up. So the mitigation models of the IPCC has introduced until this last report, and only in a minor way in this last report, have left out any kind of demand side interventions to stop this, so that they, in their reports, in their mitigation reports, they don't even consider the possibility there might be some changes in the structure of the production and consumption. They actually assume neoclassical equilibrium models, the free market economy, so-called, that capitalism will proceed as present. They also, in their mitigation models, assume rapid economic growth, and they assume that there will not be any implementation of climate policy, that is by political means, so that the changes are all based on the hope they offer in their social science models is based on 2 things. One is increasing carbon prices, and the second one, fantastically new technology that doesn't exist, and which is rather strange because we don't have much time in which to utilize technology that doesn't exist, or time to develop it. And of course, most of that technology has scale problems. And you know, the point is that they want to continue the present system no matter what. And so there's a whole bet that we can keep on the economic system going, and there'll be some miracle technology that will save us, but they haven't actually, and there are various schemes like BECCS, bioenergy, and carbon capture and sequestration, which is the favorite approach in technological approach in almost all IPCC models, but it would require that they seize land on the earth for growing crops to be burned. They would need an amount of land equal to 1 or 2 Indias, probably 2 Indias, according to the science reports. So they need 2 subcontinents, and they would need, and they'd have to take a lot of that land from existing agriculture, and they would need an amount of water equal to all of the water being used in agriculture today, just to for the BECCS. And there are other plans that are even worse. But nothing, in all of this, there's an attempt to keep the present society going and to not deal with the problem. Now, I want to tell you that this is, I'm playing down the problem to some extent. I'm talking about what we now call the climate emergency. But it's actually a planetary emergency, because climate change is only one of our global ecological crises. Obviously, everything is related to the climate, and it's the most severe, but we have other ecological crises that are global, that are potentially as big, because we're crossing all sorts of planetary boundaries. So there is global deforestation. There's the global disappearance of fresh water, not only because of climate change, other factors, and monopolization of fresh water. There is the There is the disruption of the nitrogen and phosphorus cycles. There's ocean acidification. And there's species extinction, what we call the sixth extinction. There's species are being extinguished at what we call 1,000 times the background rate, and so on. These problems are all going on at the same time, and the emphasis now is on coming up with gimmicks to solve climate change, which won't work. Gimmicks, I mean, without actually addressing society and production, but you have to understand that all these other global ecological crises, like ocean acidification, could be as dangerous as climate change and its proceeding. All these other problems are there too, and they all have one source. They all derive from one thing, and that is the nature of our production system, and particularly a capitalist production system that's geared to exponential accumulation for the benefit of the very few. I don't say growth because growth is a very misleading term, as I could explain if I had more time. But the present system has no limits. Sustainability is in total conflict with the capitalist system, which now is taking a very extreme form of neoliberalism because of that other problem, the economic crisis, because of overaccumulation of capital. Now, I wanted to say some more things about, but I'm running out of time, but maybe I can have another 5 minutes. I wanted to say something about what's happening now, because suddenly things are changing. And I'm saying one of my theses here is that the struggle for freedom at some point meets the struggle for necessity. And then you have something like a revolution occurring. Just let me give you some dates, a little chronology from the last year, just 13 months actually. What's happened in the last year? August 2018, 15-year-old Greta Thunberg begins her school strike outside the Swedish Parliament. October 8th, 2018, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change releases special report on global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius, pointing to the need for, quote, systems transitions unprecedented in terms of scale. October 17th, 2018, Extinction Rebellion activists occupy UK greenhouse headquarters, demanding the staging of mass civil disobedience to address the climate emergency. November 6, 2018, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is elected as a congressional representative in the United States on a platform that includes a Green New Deal. November 13th, 2018, members of the Sunrise Movement occupy House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's congressional office. Newly elected Representative Ocasio-Cortez joins them. November 17th, 2018, Extinction Rebellion activists block 5 bridges over the Thames in London. December 10th, 2018, Sunrise Movement activists flood key Democratic Party congressional offices demanding the creation of a select committee for a Green New Deal. December 19th, 2018, members of Congress in support of a selective committee for a Green New Deal rise to 40. January 25th, 2019, Thunberg tells the World Economic Forum, "Our house is on fire. I want you to act as if our house is on fire, because it is." February 7th, 2019, Representative Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Edward Markey introduced the Green New Deal resolutions in Congress. March 15th, 2019, nearly 2,100 youth-led climate strikes occur in 125 countries, with 1.6 million participating, 100,000 in Milan, 40,000 in Paris, 150,000 in Montreal. April 15th to 19th, 2019, Extinction Rebellion shuts down large parts of central London. April 23rd, 2019, speaking to both houses of parliament, Thunberg states, "Did you hear what I just said? Is my English okay? Is the microphone on? Because I'm beginning to wonder." April 25th, 2019, Extinction Rebellion protesters blockade the London Stock Exchange, gluing themselves across the entrances. May 1st, 2019, UK Parliament declares a climate emergency. Shortly after similar declarations by Scotland and Wales. August 22nd, 2019, Senator and presidential candidate Bernie Sanders unveils the most comprehensive Green New Deal plan to date, proposing a public investment of $16.3 trillion over 10 years. It includes massive support to poor countries to help them meet climate change targets. September 20th, 2019, 4 million people joined the global climate strike, staging more than 2,500 events in 150 countries, 1.4 million protests in Germany alone. September 23rd, 2019, Thunberg tells the United Nations, people are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? September 25th, 2019, that's a week ago, IPCC special report on the ocean and cryosphere is released, indicating that many low-lying megacities and small islands, especially in tropical regions, will experience extreme sea level events every year by 2050. What they mean by this is they say the 1 in 100 year extreme sea level events, 1 in 100 years, will now occur every year for many small islands and coastal megacities. And so what's going on here? One thing that's happening is that the climate action movement is shifting under necessity. And in the United States and Britain, but all over the world, what they're realizing is that they need to fight for climate justice, and they're developing more radical interpretations where they understand that it's at root a question of production and capitalism. There at least is there's a kind of ecological revolution developing, although right now it's more eco-democratic than eco-socialist, and it's very critical. They're recognizing more and more, and this is what the Green New Deal is about, because it is a step forward. They're realizing that the struggle for human freedom is the same as the struggle for the earth, to save the earth, that they're one and the same side. They're realizing that, as Marx did, that these aren't two separate issues, they're two sides of the same coin, that the system of exploitation is connected to the destruction of the earth. And the only way we can fight climate change, the only way we can mobilize people, the only way it can occur and will occur and is occurring, is that when people realize that the same system that's exploiting them and oppressing them and all the issues of justice are linked to this destruction of the earth itself, so that the two fights become one. So if you look at the old Green New Deals, the Green New Deal idea came about in 2007, and it was promoted particularly in Europe, in the UK and Europe in general, and even by the Obama when he was running for office in the United States in 2008, they promoted the idea of the Green New Deal, but it was all green Keynesianism, more green jobs, eco-modernism, the whole thing to be managed by elites. No questioning whatsoever the system, marginal references to employment and poverty, but nothing really about social justice. The new radical Green New Deal approaches of the last, particularly of the last year, but starting with the Green Party in the US, are based on making frontline communities, that is the working class and all the communities of the oppressed, which are specified, putting them at the forefront. So the task is explicitly one of not only stopping the carbon emissions, but doing it in a way that is also connected to the needs of frontline communities, indigenous communities, the racially oppressed, women, the working class, and so on. And the new Green Deal approaches then actually challenge capitalism. Not so explicitly like Sanders doesn't actually attack the military like the Green Party did, but he does say that the US military should stop, that would cease guarding oil supplies, global oil supplies. So in these plans, it's very radical. All in Sanders' proposal, if workers are displaced because of environmental changes, because of, let's say, the tax on the fossil fuel companies, they get 5 years of employment, higher education, full health care, housing, everything. And the whole emphasis is in these new New Deal strategies, the radical ones, is connecting the social and the ecological in order to create a radical movement for change. And it fits with with eco-socialism. In fact, some of the, Ocasio-Cortez is explicitly an eco-socialist. It fits with Marxian theory, but more important, it fits with what has to be done. Nothing will change unless the world is mobilized, not unless our movements come together. So it's not a question of climate action anymore as a discrete movement. It's all about addressing the system of production. And the logic of this, as it gets going, is very, very powerful indeed. So we don't know what's going to happen, but we do know that suddenly we are seeing an understanding that the struggle for freedom and the struggle for natural material necessity, freedom as necessity, is now key to the whole movement, where we will be able to come together, hopefully, because we understand that we can't live unless we protect the climate, and we can't protect the climate unless we fight the system of social injustice that has created this system of this whole structure of devastation, a world Armageddon, and it's waiting. But I believe that hundreds of millions of people are going to rise up and say no. And then we'll see what those in so-called power have to say, because I think the force of common humanity will be overwhelming. At any rate, this will be a heroic period in human history. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Let me get my notepad here.
Okay. Merci, John Bellamy Foster, for giving us, donc pour de nous sa compréhension profonde, et je crois c'est là que nous étions aujourd'hui, qui nous dans syndicat, qui nous peut combattre les différents fronts, qui les questions écologiques, nous besoin d'une compréhension globale des problèmes là. Donc, il ne faut pas qu'ils nous cassent nous-mêmes en bout et qui, si nous payons la guerre, le front écologique pour protéger la plage, pour protéger, on peut couper tout ban pied dans Maurice, si nous prenons l'exemple Maurice, peut couper tout ban pied, mais nous sommes capables d'inscrire nos compréhensions, nos combats, d'un combat beaucoup plus leuse. Parce qu'à chaque fois que tu commences par dire ça, c'est qu'à la fin, nous peut cause la vie. Et moi, je crois une question, une affaire extrêmement centrale dans ce que John Bellamy Foster peut dire, c'est que quand il peut questionner production, il peut aussi dire que nous tous, nous besoin mettre nous en mouvement. Et que nous pas si bon consommateurs. Système capitaliste fait nous croire que nous sommes consommateurs. Qu'il suffit que nous changeons nos façons manger, que nous façons vivre et que nous pourrons résoudre le problème là. Nous pas pour dire le problème là, parce que la production là, elle peut continuer. Et il peut trouver plusieurs moyens, plusieurs facteurs, plusieurs éléments pour forcer nous continuer de consommer. Vous connaissez, disons, si nous prenons question plantée, beaucoup de monde content planter. Moi aussi, je content planter. Si on pose la question aujourd'hui, question la terre dans Maurice, si nous prenons Maurice comme un exemple, mais combien de monde dans ce pays-là qui a accès à la terre qui est capable de planter? Donc, c'est ça une question fondamentale qui nous a posée parce qu'il est là qui nous peut faire avec nous la terre. Nous peut brader nous la terre pour nous mettre béton, nous peut brader nous la terre pour nous faire ce qu'on appelle gentrification. Donc, c'est ça une question-là qui est profonde, qui fait que nous adresse la question des productions. Donc, merci encore une fois, John. Dis-moi, puis on vient assurer, est-ce qu'au niveau de traduction, nous correct, nous pouvons gagner traduction? Oui? Correct. Un avion peut passer par là. Donc, sans plus tarder, donc nous pouvons commencer à partir Julienne, Julienne, Bruce, Idéal, Fanny. Donc, j'étais à 3 minutes chacun pour répondre à ce que John Bellamy Foster dit. Donc, nous toujours dans une boîte de questions et ce que nous pouvons faire, c'est qu'après ça, nous pouvons prendre 2 ou 3 questions depuis sa boîte-là et que là, John Bellamy Foster pour répondre à l'ensemble et que là, nous pouvons l'espace pour qu'il y ait des gens capables d'interagir. Donc, Juliane.
Bon. Bonjour à tous. Donc, moi, c'est Julienne depuis Rodrigues Government Employees Association et aussi Mouvement indépendantiste Rodrigues. Donc, moi, j'ai un commentaire et aussi une question. Mon commentaire est pour en créole et mon question est pour en anglais. Et mon commentaire, c'est que d'après John Bellamy Foster, nous trouve pertinence entre la lutte pour la liberté, pour l'indépendance, pour protéger la nature, pour protéger l'humanité, les vrais même liés, et que nous trouvons alors, moi, je peux dire que quand monsieur camarade Foster in causé, nous trouvons même dans la lutte qui est avant, dans le passé, ça lien qui est entre le besoin de liberté, l'indépendance et aussi pour ça lien qui est entre la lutte pour protéger nos planètes, pour protéger la nature, pour nous survivre, qui vraiment ça les relier et qui aussi qu'ils ont dit nous dans un état critique que si nous pas réaliser, nous pas prendre conscience de la nature, nous pas tarder pour lui montrer nous qui est une urgence parce qu'ils nous trouvaient dans nos réalités dans Rodrigues nous trouvaient qui nous dévastés par un cyclone dernièrement. Le cas qui est plus dur, il est plus gros, il est plus radical qui tout cyclone qui nous vivent et qui nous l'éclaire qui le changement climatique qui peut venir faux mais qui nous visait réaliser qui nous est dans un état d'urgence qui nous visait mettre en place. Et moi j'ai une question pour camarade Foster. Can you expand more on the notion of metabolism, more precisely social metabolism, as it seems to be central to the understanding of the ecological crisis we are facing?
Bonjour, je m'appelle Bruce, and that's the only French I know. So I come from South Africa, and as John has said, and sorry, I forgot your name, has just said, the two crises we face, the ecological crisis and the crisis of injustice, is why eco-socialism is such a critical politics for a country like South Africa, because we are one of the most, or the most unequal countries in the world. We have staggering levels of unemployment and poverty. South Africa is also one of the worst carbon polluters in the world, certainly the worst in Africa, and I believe we're now number 12 in the world. And we are soon to complete 2 very long overdue coal-fired power stations, which are some of the largest in the world. And then also in the South African context is we have some of the most incredible biodiversity in the world. It really is a beautiful country, and that biodiversity is coming under increasing threat through climate change, but also through extractive activities such as mining. And as activists, most of us know that to take on this challenge to build eco-socialism, the people who we need to build it with are the working class and poor in South Africa. Those are the people who are most affected by these crises, and also the people who will lead the struggle and be the best kind of participants in that struggle. But perhaps just to talk about some of the challenges that we face as activists. John mentioned alienation, and even in a city where I come from, Cape Town, one of the most beautiful cities in the world, perhaps, most people remain alienated from nature. We still have what's called apartheid geography, where most people of color are still separated, living in informal settlements or essentially slums. And then when you combine that with the other crises of unemployment, we have a serious crisis of gender-based violence. It can be difficult to bring people towards the ecological crisis and the need to organize around climate change. One example which I would encourage everyone, and please cut me off when I'm done, to look at those. There's an incredible rural movement called the Amadiba Crisis Committee in a place called Bellamy, and they have successfully, well, they are still resisting the destruction of their land from a mining company from Australia, which has the full backing of the state, the backing of the police. A key leader in the Amadiba Crisis Committee was assassinated, but they have managed to win huge court victories to physically resist the theft of their land. And there we see a kind of ecological consciousness, which is so powerful. One of the leaders, her name is Nontle, says, you know, when you take my land, you take my dignity and my livelihood. And there is already an understanding there of how nature and the earth provides and how we are connected to it. And then finally, in South Africa, certainly the movements I come from, we are trying to push the just transition, so a transition towards a renewable energy economy that doesn't leave mining workers behind, that looks at building a more socialist economy, that looks to address other crises such as public transport, sanitation, and in this process, the hope to create livelihoods and jobs for many more people. We also have an emerging high school striking movement. Recently organized a fairly successful March, but we are trying now to push through a new initiative called the Sustainable Schools Initiative to retrofit schools with climate infrastructure, but not just solar panels, but water and sanitation, to promote the planting of food gardens, which could be sold back into the community, to plant trees. And we see this as a critical site where high school students can, in their everyday lives, do climate action. And then just finally, I would say as a question less to just John, but to all of us is, and hopefully we would answer it throughout the week, is how are we going to build the global unified movements to build this kind of power that we need to challenge this crisis. And I look forward to trying to answer that question with the rest of you. Thank you.
Bonjour à tous, je m'appelle Idéal, je viens de Madagascar. Je remercie notre intervenant John pour les partages qui ont permis qui m'ont aidé à avoir une vision plus claire du mécanisme qui se passe. Et en partant de cette vision globale, je vais essayer de nous amener pour quelques minutes du global vers le local et au cœur des familles, des ménages à Madagascar. L'écologie se fait avec des personnes. C'est une question de conscience, une question de décision. Comment les familles aujourd'hui décident? Il y a d'abord la décision sur la relation qu'on choisit d'avoir avec la terre.
Yeah, I can't hear anything. It's too soft. Can the interpreter speak louder? The interpreter needs to speak louder.
Okay. Plus lentement ou moins fort? Moins fort. Ok, d'accord. Ok. Oui, oui. Et j'ai parlé donc de la relation avec la terre. C'est ok? Ok, d'accord. Et justement, par rapport à la hiérarchie que l'être humain a posée, l'être humain ne se sent plus partie prenante de la nature, mais l'être humain se croit propriétaire de la nature. Par exemple, les terres aujourd'hui sont vues comme des biens à vendre et non plus pour produire. Auparavant, on produit et les produits permettent à l'être humain aussi de survivre. Mais aujourd'hui, les terrains sont à vendre et à transformer sans renouvellement. Si on plante, on récolte, on peut replanter après. Aujourd'hui, dans la capitale de Madagascar, on a plusieurs rizières qui sont transformées. Les gens procèdent à l'extraction des argiles pour les briques et l'extraction aussi des sables pour les constructions. Et ensuite, au lieu d'avoir des rizières, on a après des projets de construction de logements. On a même des programmes présidentiels pour transformer des rizières qui sont encore opérationnelles pour la création de nouvelles villes. Donc, ce sont des décisions qui font réfléchir par rapport au niveau de conscience des personnes. Parallèlement, il y a aussi l'exode rural. Madagascar est un pays réputé pour être un pays à vocation agricole. Plus de 80% de la population vit en milieu rural. Mais aujourd'hui, le modèle de développement posé par le capitalisme incite surtout les jeunes à quitter les campagnes et essayer de créer, d'accéder à des travaux dans des bureaux avec des conforts, à se familiariser avec la technologie et oublier les racines, oublier les terres, oublier les productions. Pourtant, les gens à la campagne sont les principaux acteurs de l'agriculture. Donc, pour résumer, il y a cette distance que le capitalisme crée dans la conscience des gens, c'est la distance entre l'état naturel et le modèle de développement que les jeunes surtout essayent d'atteindre. Donc, la grande question qui se pose est comment on peut faire pour renverser la vapeur, pour attirer de nouveau les jeunes et la population en général vers à retourner à l'état naturel. Et juste une question pour notre intervenant. Quand vous parlez à John, quand vous parlez de l'écologie, quand vous expliquez tous ces concepts, comment vous trouvez la réaction des jeunes? Quel est leur intérêt? Est-ce qu'ils sont intéressés? Est-ce que ça crée quelque chose au niveau des jeunes? Pouvez-vous nous en parler un peu? Merci.
Bonjour, moi c'est Fanny Rengasamy, donc de Maurice. I would like to speak in English. So we are living in a time of important challenge to sustainable development. Science is clear. We have reached a point of no return. As a matter of fact, humans have prioritized his comfort as consumer without understanding the importance of his role as an individual and how important this role impacts the whole world around him. By understanding the importance of our economic activities and how it led us to what we can call now the Anthropocene epoch, we can understand what is interdependence. But if we do not address the inequalities to opportunity and wealth at the same level we fight rising carbon emission, then I think our fight is vain. As mentioned earlier, social sciences has nothing to do with natural science. But ever since Marx introduced the notion of social metabolism, where he defined the labor and production process as a metabolic relationship between human being and nature, and used this concept to understand their intrinsic relationship. Even though almost every human activity involves the use of the environment, it went all wrong when muscle were replaced by machines, in fact, when exchange value became of prior importance to use value. And this is for me a game changer to understand where we come from and our actual position to the ecological crisis. We had a chance to make a difference before it was too late, but how do we deal with what we have now? I believe that our best hope forward is to take great care of what we teach to our next generation. The educational system does not fit reality anymore. We are teaching our children to value things that has no objective values. Instead of an outdated educational system, which divorces our children from who it is they truly are, we need to teach them that there is strength in caring for themselves, for others, and eventually for nature. Even in agriculture, human has violated the most fundamental laws of nature. People are thrown in jail for not abiding to human laws, which does not threaten the whole humanity. Yet violating universal laws is not even treated with much importance and urgency. To be able to talk about sustainability, we need to reconnect human to nature and agriculture to real science. And I have a question for John Bellamy Foster. I would like to know your opinion on why the various rebellion movements to the system failed to act as an ecological guardian. I would like to know your opinion on why the various rebellion movements throughout the years failed to act as an ecological guardian. Thank you.
Okay, now my proposal to John is like, I think we've got a lot of questions. If we like choose 3 out of the box, so I'll leave it to John to choose 3 out of it and to respond to what has been said by the discussants and also to those 3 questions. So John, if you don't mind to do it like in 15 minutes, like respond to the panelists and 3 questions from the box, and then we can leave like 30 minutes interaction between the floor and the different panelists. So the floor is yours again. So I'll leave, like, you can choose 3 questions out of the box, and if you can, like, respond to the panelists and the 3 questions in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
If it's okay with you.
Should I do the panels first and then?
Yes,
Yes.
as you wish. As you wish.
I don't know how many questions there are in all. There are a lot in the box, and there are these great comments from the panelists. And the first speaker is from Rodrigues, and was asking, I believe I couldn't quite catch the question of you know, how the shift from capitalism to socialism might help with solve these problems. But you know, socialism, and particularly in the classical Marxist sense that we've rediscovered, is all about, you know, socialism is about removing class oppression. It's about the associated producers controlling production. It's about the struggle for social freedom. And if you look at Marx's definition of socialism, his most famous definition of socialism in volume 3, which I mentioned, he says it's the rational regulation of the metabolism between human beings and nature, that is, our production by the associated producers, so as to conserve on our human energy and to develop human potential. And in that definition, in his conception of socialism, it's not simply about the associated producers coming to power and replacing capitalism, but it's about people coming together in a collective communal process in recognition of not only the need for human emancipation, but also the sustaining of the earth. And there is no way that socialism in that definition cannot, you know, I mean, that is the answer. There is, if socialism means what Marx said it means, then that is the path that we must take. The problem is there have been a lot of versions of socialism, and that relates to the last question, where the connection between the struggle for human freedom and the sustaining of the earth for future generations, the vital connection between those has been broken, and that's led to all kinds of disasters, fundamental contradictions within socialism itself. But capitalism can neither address the struggle for human freedom, neither can it cease to expropriate the earth. Capitalism cannot solve either of these. And this makes me think of something else in relation to this, and that is the capitalism will often present you with a kind of eco-imperialism. Well, it will say, well, we're going to save the environment, but it's used in order to oppress people or enslave people more, and creates contradictions, and it cannot possibly be the solution. Or capitalism will say, well, we'll promote your freedom by conquering, by destroying the environment. What it can't do is bring these together. Let me give you an example. In the Britain and the United States have recently come out with a decision that the Chagos Islands, which were taken from Mauritius and the islanders, indigenous islanders displaced, that is going to be, the ocean around the Chagos Islands is going to be turned into a marine preservation area. That was aimed at, number one, getting the support for the green movements around the world. Well, this is a good thing that there will be the marine preservation, even though it's all around a military base in Diego Garcia that's used to invade different parts of the world. But the real reason they're doing that is because there is now a movement to allow Chagos Islanders to go back to the Chagos Islands, and Jeremy Corbyn is a strong supporter of that. And it's really a ruse. They say, well, we're going to create a marine preservation area, and now the Chagos Islanders can't go back home because that would interfere with marine preservation. And that's actually stated in US and British documents. And so they're supposedly promoting ecology in order to perpetuate a colonial situation. Capitalism does this all the time. What we have to do, and it's the most radical thing we can do, the most revolutionary, is bring these two issues together. In the second question, the second panelist talked about the just transition. That's really the key to the radical Green New Deal strategies and the new movement, more eco-revolutionary movement. That just transition started with the Oil, Chemical and Atomic Workers Union, Tony Mazzocchi, and then was picked up by the US Steelworkers. And the idea was to create a solution that wouldn't put workers against the environment, that would solve that problem. And now the just transition is the central plank in all the Green New Deal plans. And it's seen as essential. They're not just fighting climate change. They have to do with a just transition, and they have to deal with the oppression of these communities at the same time. And the question was, how do we build a global unified movement? Well, that's how we do it. And in the North now, in Britain and the United States, the movements are now really getting serious about climate mitigation. And so I've read some things, some statements in Venezuela. Well, we should criticize Greta Thunberg because she's just a blonde Swedish girl, and they're only listening to her because she comes from the North, and we should consider the South as well. But that's a really divisive stance. What we understand is that in the rich countries are responsible for all this whole mess, and they're the only countries who can really do mitigation at the level that's necessary, have the technology, the wealth, and the historical responsibility, and they have to reduce their emissions by 10% a year, at least, or the world is in danger. And what we should do is pull together around this. And in the global South, there has to be a fight for just transitions and for adaptation to climate change. And all these issues have to be on the programs of the movements in the North. They have to fight ecological imperialism. They have to fight imperialism as well. So this is how we create a global movement. I think the third question, I don't know if I'm doing very well on time here. Maybe I'll speed up. But those said, well, when you talk about ecology and development, you need to address the younger generation, and I think this is it. I think the younger generation is starting to teach the older generation, because the younger generation knows that they may not have a world to live in, or not a habitable world. We are talking about maintaining a habitable Earth. The Earth will stay no matter what, but we want an Earth in which we can live. And the younger generation is seeing that in their own lives, the world may become uninhabitable. And at the same time, they're experiencing all this economic oppression. And they're beginning to tell the older generations, look, sustainability is the main issue. And so we have to listen to each other across generations. I'm beginning to think that it's not the older generation that should teach the younger generation. The younger generation needs to teach us. And Greta Thunberg is a symbol of that. So there's a lot more to say about that. The one thing that that was said by that panelist was talking about how people are alienated. And I just wanted to remind you of what the original meaning of alienation was when it arose in English political economy before it was adopted by Hegel and Marx. To alienate it means to sell. And what it's all about is selling the land, selling nature, selling human beings, not just as slaves, but selling our labor time. It's alienating has at its roots this selling of everything in existence. And we have to break with that. We can see what happens on a global scale now in the Anthropocene to a society that's built on the basis of selling everything. We're selling the earth. We're selling the earth system. We're selling the entire planet. And we're alienating it from ourselves and the conditions of our existence. The last panelists talked about, the game changer of Marx's notion of metabolism. Yes, it fed into all of ecology, but it's very important because Marx's concept gives us a direct connection between human production and the environment. We understand that exploitation and the expropriation of the environment are the same thing. And just as the labor and production process is our metabolism with the earth, and if we alienate all of this, we destroy ourselves. But turning this around, we can see a path towards freedom and necessity. And it was said that there's a chance to make a decision before it is too late. You know, the scientists say that there is a climate inertia. That means that we are changing the earth through our climate emissions, but there's a lag. The emissions happen, but the main effects don't happen till later. And sometimes people tell me, well, that's a tragic thing. It's too bad the main effects don't happen right now. The catastrophe doesn't happen right now because people will act then. But then, by then it would be too late. The climate inertia is actually our opportunity. We have a generation, or maybe 15, 20 years in which to act, to turn this around, to change human production, consumption, change the way we live, and we can still do it. If we don't act, it will be all over, and we'll find out what those catastrophes really amount to. It will no longer be just scientific reports. It will be our daily existence. Let me see what I can do. I guess I maybe have about 5 minutes there's like 30 questions here, so I'll see. Is there a single model of sustainability, or each community, or is each community to find one? Is there time for interdependence or independence or both? Well, this is a complicated question. No, there's no single model of sustainability, although there are parameters that we have to conform to. But when we say that we expropriate the earth, that means we're taking from it and not putting back. We're not reproducing the earth. So it's a robbery system. We have to exist. We have to have a sustainable system. But there are going to be a lot of different ways of carrying out sustainability. There are different vernacular revolutionary traditions, different cultures, different situations. The sea level, they talk about relative sea level. It's relative only in terms of your land, right? As sea level rises, it affects different communities different ways to different extents. The actions to be taken are going to be different, but it's all going to have to conform to certain kind of natural laws. Francis Bacon is usually seen as an enemy of the environment, but he said that we can only master nature by following its laws. You can see that as a notion of dominating nature, which is the way in which the principle was usually applied. But Engels and Marx turned that around and said, yeah, well, we have to follow nature's laws, and our own, we have to master our own relation to nature by following its laws, which means also respecting and relations to each other, human equality. This says, I never lose, either I win, either we are learning. Well, anyway, it's a good, that we never lose, we always win, we are learning. I think maybe it's true. My students often ask me, well, with this climate change issue, which is going to be the winning side? Should I be on this side or that side? I say, well, you should be on the side of humanity and the earth. Whether humanity and the earth lose or not, you should never be on the other side. You shouldn't always be worried about winning. You should be worried about doing what's necessary. How can we fight the monetary value of neoliberal economics? God creates nature and man creates money too. How do we address this? Well, I guess the critique of capitalism, fighting capitalism, the domination of money of value over our lives, the domination of exchange value over use value is at the root, as Marx's terms, that's the fundamental contradiction, both for class exploitation and for the oppression of the earth, and we have to turn that around. We have to, defend the nature form against the value form. Is it realistic to reduce carbon emissions or CO2 gas by 0% by 2050? If yes, how and when and what should be done for the reduction of the emission of CO2 gas by 0% by 250? Well, we say net emissions, it has to be zero net emissions by 2050. And I won't get into the issue of negative emissions technologies, which ends up being irrational. BECCS is one of those. But sure, we could cut the carbon emissions in the rich countries, which is, the rich countries are the biggest part of the problem. China and India have to do things too, but the wealthy countries have to take the lead for all sorts of reasons. It's not that hard. It wouldn't be that hard to reduce your carbon emissions by 10% a year. My students asked me, well, how could I reduce my carbon emissions from driving by 10% a year? I said, well, you could reduce it by 10% a year this year by driving 10% less. And it's not really, there are a lot of other things you can do, but it isn't that difficult. And but they drive to the store to get a bar of soap, and then they drive 5 miles back. You don't need to do that. So there are all sorts of things we can do, but we actually have to change our production and consumption. We have to build solar power facilities. We have to promote alternative energy, but we also have to change what we do and how we live. And actually, we could do much better. And right now, everything is going to the rich. When there's economic growth, it all goes to the wealthy. It doesn't do the most of the population any good. Maybe we should redistribute wealth and income. In the United States now, 3 people own more wealth than the bottom 2/3 of the US population. maybe they could afford to redistribute a little bit. It would help and would change the structure of the society. What advice would you give to small islands in regard to climate change? What is the next step after? Well, I'm really impressed by the IPCC's ocean and well, their ocean report, cryosphere report from September 25th. They have all sorts of advice for small islands on what they can do. But of course, it's different than what's being done in these islands because of the power structures. But they do have advice. But at a certain point, if it gets to 1.5 degrees, all the attempts to fight sea level and conserve coral reefs and all these other things, and to save the blue economy, blue justice, all these things kind of fade away if the global climate gets out of control. But right now, there's a huge amount you can do. And the more you do and the more you politicize it, the more it wakes up the whole world. In Mauritius is the place where ecology started, they say. Can the preservation, so maybe you can be leaders in the solution too. Can the preservation of the ecological system also promote sufficient economic development?
If we now go like to let the floor for
Okay, all right. Okay.
And then because those we can also
Okay.
back,
We can go over them later. Yeah, sufficient economic development. I think that a lot of poor countries need economic development. The rich countries don't actually need economic development. There's an incredible amount of waste in the system. I mean, the rich countries need economic development only in the sense that capitalism demands it. But it isn't a lack of material, it's not a lack of material wealth in the rich countries that's the problem. It's the way the society is structured, its distribution. It's how people are forced to consume. We're actually, just as we're forced to produce in ways that increase the chains on us, we're forced to consume in ways that increase the chains on us and that destroy the climate. Those things have to change, but it isn't, Britain and the United States and Germany, and these are not poor countries. They don't lack resources. If they went back to the conditions that they had in the 1970s, it wouldn't be a bad thing. They would be happier, maybe. But so it's, but economic development in Haiti, yes, they need it. And various countries need economic development. They need human development. They need various kinds of educational health facilities. We can't abandon the struggle for those things. But we shouldn't try to do it through the filter of the capital accumulation process where they promise these things and then you don't actually get the education, the health, you just get more money at the top.
thank you, John. So what we will do now is, because we also want to hear voices from the audience, so we'll leave it open for 3 questions. Okay, we've got one, Godoy, Kavi, and one woman, please. Yes, because we've got. Okay, we've got our sister from Namibia. Yes. Okay, so if you can please come in front. So there's Godoy. And there was this gentleman here and our sister from Namibia. One thing I will ask you, because I will cut you if you don't respect, because we don't have extensive time, is if you can keep your question or comments for 1 minute, please. So we'll start with you, Godoy. And we'll take another round with Kavi, and we'll take another round after that. So if you can come in front, because we have only one mic.
Thank you, sir. First, I'm Mr. Gudo from a movement called Yoga Nature. And I want to thank the organizers. They always think of me and I'm always present whenever they organize such a program. My question is that I think nature is always right. It is we people, the politicians that have gone wrong. C'est la balance entre nature et l'homme. It's a job of the politicians. They have failed in the job. That's why we are suffering today. And what to do next? That's why you are here. Now, Mr. Foster was talking about monopolizing of capital in the hand of a few people. It's the same problem in Mauritius here. I'm sure you all will agree. The more money corrupts, the more money in the hand of few people, the more the problem. So what's the solution next? Yesterday, I was invited in the faction International Old People Day, celebration of Old People Day. And the PM shouted and proposed to the old people to double the pension from 6,000 to double it. More money for the old people so that they can enjoy kebab, McDonald's and Kentucky, and increase the obesity, communicable diseases, stress, violence, diabetes, cholesterol. Mauritius, before 2 days, I was at the WHO Health Program Technical Committee. I understand from the report, 87% Mauritian malade, 87% people are sick. So what's the solution? Should we give more money? Should we call for higher income? I think no, sir. I think 150 years ago when our people, coolies, the slave, African, Indian came to Mauritius, they were given house, they were given food, they had hospital, and a little bit of money they were given. I think we should go back. Money and more money will not solve the problem. We have to pay them. We got a lot of union people. I remember last year I was in a conference of Ministry of Labor, future of the world. And I suggested something about, I talked about something cosmic, spiritual yoga. But I'm sorry they could not make head and tail because they had donkey tail, you know. And what I wanted to say that we should appreciate nature. Nature is yoga. Yoga is about our body, 5 elements. Nature is 5 elements. We are part of nature. Once we understand this, the balance will come. And fortunately, no money and no budget for yoga in the Minister of Finance program.
Thank you, Comrade Godoy.
So,
thank you. Sorry.
So my question is you think more and more money, or should we pay people in form of housing, health, natural medicine? We got a lot of medicine. People are cutting trees of Pican Loulou down Rodrigues. They're putting medicine along the road, killing so many herbs and plants that are useful for medicine. So my question is, should we pay more money or pay them in another form? That will be like l'époque tabissement nuciana too. Money is not the problem. Let's give house, roti kapara makan, that will serve. I've got more questions next. I'll come next. Okay.
The message I got here today is that it all comes down to, capitalism contributing to the destruction of our ecology. And then again, it seems like the third world countries are, especially Africa is upholding capitalism. That's my feeling, and I believe that's why they are failing us, in terms of development. And then at the end of the day, that makes me feel sorry for African leaders because they are under pressure of upholding capitalism. So now the question is, what should they do, to change this whole, metabolism, the problem they're having of upholding capitalism? Is there anything they can do, anything we can do to develop our own systems in order to, to promote social justice and a healthier climate or a healthy ecology, to say?
Thank you. My question is more about political alternatives and political solutions, since we have seen that during many years, political leaders are having a summit talking about climate. And the question I want to ask for our guest is, does the organization of many conferences of parties have good impact on the fight against this ecological crisis and climate change? Thank you.
Okay. So we'll leave it to John, like for 5 minutes, if possible. Yeah. And then we'll take another round of.
All right. Well, I'm not sure I understood the question on the question in the first question, but there was a lot there. One of the things was about Old People's Day and doubling pension, but we have to deal with consumption, and most of the environmental strategies. One of the weaknesses of the Green New Deal radical programs is that. And I call them eco-democratic rather than eco-socialist, is that they don't actually question consumption at all, and they don't question production, the production system. They simply put forward demands in terms of social justice and the climate, which are impossible for capitalism to fulfill, and they know that they're pushing against the system, but they don't question the consumption. And there is this presumption that production in our society is efficient. We're always told it's efficient, and yet if we and in terms of maybe combining inputs with outputs in an abstract sense, we could say there's a kind of efficiency. But actually, in our production system, we produce the most enormous waste that's unnecessary because of the structure of the capitalist economy. And that also affects the consumption system. Let me give you an example, because it's hard to explain. In the 1950s, there was a marketing company. There was a corporation that was selling potato peelers, and I've read about this. This is a true story, but I've added some aspects to it because, which I'm sure are correct, but I don't have any definitive proof of. But they're selling. This company was selling potato peelers, and they realized we're selling an awful lot of potato peelers in the United States. What's going on? And so they went and they had a board meeting about it. And being all white men, they sat around and kind of asked each other, how do you peel a potato anyway? And so they reconvened the meeting. This is my elaboration. And they brought a woman in and had her peel potatoes in front of them so they would know what was going on. And they watched and watched and they thought about it. And they realized, well, they peel potatoes by peeling them over newspaper. And then they throw the newspaper in the garbage with the potato peels. And somebody suddenly realized, I think they're throwing the potato peelers away with the potato peels. And so they thought, well, this is a good thing. How can we expedite this, make this happen more frequently? So somebody came up with the idea, if you make the handle of the potato peeler a dull brown color, just the same color as potato peels, you've probably seen this, there'll be a camouflage effect, and they'll throw the potato peelers around away more frequently. So they did that, but then they couldn't sell the potato peelers because they were, had this brown, this dull brown base, and they didn't attract people's eye in the store. So they thought, well, the thing is, we have to keep these brown handles, so let's put them in a bright red package and cover, surround the potato peelers with plastic. So you have to buy this whole plastic to get by the potato peelers that, and the plastic is covered with red and so on, so people will see it. And then they sold them and they were thrown away and everything was good. But it's just an example. I could give you thousands of examples, but we build waste into the process and people are forced to pay for it. So you have to pay for the packaging that was designed to catch your eye, no other reason, and then they had to catch your eye because they were trying to design the potato peeler so it would be thrown away so they could sell more. And our whole system, I could explain, our whole system has got waste built into the production process. In every single product you can find that. And we have a throwaway culture, we have a destructive culture. The people are taught to that waste is good. And but you have to pay. You get an increase in wages, and then you have to pay for all these additional aspects of a product that do you no good. The packaging does you no good. It's only there to help the company, but you pay for the packaging. And so our whole structure of consumption, its production determines our consumption, and people are not really better off. The notion that there's consumer sovereignty is a lie, and we have to get away from a money-driven economy. We have to get away from the notion that, yeah, the more things you consume, the better you're off. The more things you waste, the better you're off. That has no rational relation to human welfare. In terms of the second question, Africa's in a terrible situation in terms of imperialism, in terms of environmental devastation. It's greater in Africa than anywhere else, and it's hard to know what to say at this point, but it's necessary to fight imperialism. The old African socialism that's gone away, it wasn't wrong, but it has to be reborn in a different way. The old socialism was too much cut off from natural necessity. The struggle for freedom was one-sided. We have to build movements all over the world, and I think no country, no people can do this by themselves, but together we might be able to. And I tell my students, they say, well, we can't change the United States right now. And I said, yeah, you can't change it right now, perhaps, but one thing we can do is fight imperialism. And if there is a big enough struggle in the United States against imperialism, it opens up possibilities for people in the rest of the world. We have to think about how our struggles cross waters, how our struggles cross waters from one island to another island, from one continent to another continent, and not judge it just in terms of ourselves. The third question asked about what to do about political leaders, politics, and in this big mess. Well, one of the things of Wallerstein, I'm not actually a follower of Emanuel Wallerstein in every respect, but one thing he did is he distinguished between world empires, where, like the Roman Empire, where a single country will control large parts of the world and control it politically and militarily. But the economies, the division of labor in all the countries would be different. The capitalist system is different than that. It's a world economy, and the most successful world economy, more than 500 years old. And it's a system where the world economy the division of labor is integrated across the world, although it's hierarchically integrated with center, semi-periphery, periphery, and so on, and all kinds of inequalities. But the political system is divided into many different sovereignties. And that's the problem. Well, they say, well, we can't do anything because those other countries are not good. I mean, every country is competing with every other country, and they say, well, we need to get ahead economically, and we can't do it by or catch up, or we can't do it by putting our resources into environmental sustainability, and we can't do it by going against growth in some respects. And we have to insist, political leaders, that we're all in the same boat to some extent, that if we destroy the world's climate, everybody will be affected, although people in the tropics first, which is another problem, and in the low latitudes are be hit hardest first. And we have to recognize that that is the primary condition. And you could say, you know, this is just an absolute necessity. You just insist on that. There's nothing more important. And economic growth is less important than economic justice and social justice, because economic growth doesn't give you that, as you know. So we have to insist on what is essential, and we have to stop being polite. We have to stop being cooperative. We have to recognize, well, if the future for a younger generation is in jeopardy, so you can't, you know, you're looking at the possibility of seeing the planet become uninhabitable, the whole planet in your lifetime, you ought to be angry. You ought to be able to take strong stands and build movements around that in itself. So I think, and political leaders will just be you know, pushed aside, hopefully. Of course, I say that coming from this horrible country called the United States of America, where they have a president, believe it or not, named Donald Trump, who has declared the climate doesn't even exist. So at least it's not of concern to him. And and we haven't gotten rid of that political leader yet. So anybody coming from the United States is in a difficult position. Our movement is not yet strong enough. Oh, okay, well that's.
Okay, just because we are ahead of time, I don't know. I think I would have taken another round of question if we are okay, because I don't know if people are hungry. Sorry, Godoy, because there are also other comrades that would like to speak as well. Okay, you will. D'accord, okay. Can I have, so I will take, because we have, one suggestion is the comrades that will be with us at the school, we also have time to engage with John. So if you also have like other questions, we can always address that when we get at the venue. I know that there's, do you still have, so there was Kavi. I would like to see a lady's hand, so I will give priority to, yep. Okay. Okay, okay, my comrade from Tanzania. So Kavi, if you can come in front. I've got one question from Tanzania. And did I see a hand? Karim, okay, is it? Yes, can you please come in front? And if we can keep the question concise. Sorry, comrade, we'll only take three questions. So if you can keep it concise, like for a minute, then it will work. C'est bon?
Thank you, thank you. No, I'm not from Tanzania, I'm from South Africa. Okay. I'm Adam Mabunda. Yes, I think I need to start off by thanking the organizers for us to be here, and for me to be in front of the world of people who really care, because ecology is one important thing that it's not less than anything. It's actually greater than everything in this life we are living. Again, there's this guy called, it's not a guy, it's a very important man, say Albert Einstein. He said, you know, there is no harm in doing harm, but the greatest of harm is when you see others doing harm and choose to do nothing about it. I have witnessed over a long period how we behave. There's one thing that we need to change. I heard one speaker saying that Mauritius will be going to the polls not so long. You find our very own activists voting for the very same people who are oppressing us. That must change, and that must change now. You see, we are giving these people more resources to oppress us by voting for them. It must stop. You see, at home, where I come from, there are scientists, natural scientists, indigenous people who could even call upon rain when it does not come. These scientists that we have these days are up to no good. We cannot continue to support them. We need to support people like Greta Thunberg, and we must be able to say it here. We support Greta Thunberg. We must be able to do that on every sphere, social media, local radio, and whatsoever. That is how to build a movement. Thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Karim. I'm from Mauritius. Thank you very much, Kez, for the invitation. My question is very short, and to Professor Foster. What radical change do you see by 2030?
Bonjour, je m'appelle Kavi. Je remercie Kez pour ça, avec manager de l'organisation pour sa activité-là. Il invite nous, il invite le professeur à une sommité comme Bellamy pour venir là, pour éclairer nous un petit peu plus, pour donner nous sa discussion en profondeur. Je pourrais rebondir. Oh, excuse me, please. Okay, I may choose to speak English, but because the majority of the people here are Mauritians, I would choose to speak Creole. There are interpreters for that. Thank you. Alors, me rebondi l'eau, c'est qui? OK. Ouais. Me remercie Kez qui invite professeur Bellamy pour venir de nous éclairer nous là ça cisé mais un petit peu plus en profondeur là ça cisé climate crisis là. Mon envie rebondir là c'est qui ou fin dire professeur Bellamy en dernier lieu là Donald Trump là qui est un climate denier. Moi, j'ai un problème personnel. Moi, j'ai un camarade très proche avec moi qui étudie en Amérique du Nord. Nous partageons la même valeur. Quand il retourne, il vient un denier. Il y a un climate denier. Il y a un denier dans tous les domaines. Oh, nous connaissons beaucoup d'informations scientifiques, rationnelles, l'eau qui la terre ronde, qui un changement climatique qui peut arriver, mais qui est là. Nous sommes capables d'arguer avec ces gens-là pour dire comme ça, qui a là, il a l'information-là, l'information scientifique. Mais qui est là dans la tête de ces gens-là? Est-ce qu'il y a un parcours en tant que professeur où on trouve une climate denieuse? Comment nous deal avec eux? Nous sommes capables d'arguer avec eux rationnellement, mais just brush aside et ça. Et donc, à cause de ça, je perds de moins en moins fréquente mon camarade. Merci.
Okay, just for the Bellamy will respond to the three questions, and then we'll leave it like 1 minute per discussion for a concluding note, and then it will be like 5 minutes for a concluding note to you.
I'm sorry, I have all these questions too. Anyway. The first person said that, and it was, that the problem is when people witness the harm and do nothing about it. Oops. we live in a society where everybody is increasingly aware of climate change, but it's hard to talk about it, and people want to turn away and not do anything. And I think it has to do with, we're told that it's an individual responsibility, that we have to solve these problems as individuals. And it isn't an individual responsibility, really. It isn't something we can solve as individuals. It's only something we can solve collectively. And I think that people have to come together in movements politically. I don't mean that you shouldn't take individual actions to protect the environment, to affect your own consumption and so on. But the problem we have now is only one that can be addressed by politically, and I mean by mass movements, collective action, and anything else is an illusion. So we have to get all the people who are concerned but feel isolated together to struggle over this issue. I think we should support Greta Thunberg to some extent. I mean, because she's speaking the truth to power. But the most important thing is the next level. It's our collective action. The best thing about what Greta Thunberg has done is that she became the instigator just by going out on a strike by herself in front of the Swedish Parliament. Pretty soon you have school strikes all across Europe. Within a few months, 1.2 million people on strike, mostly children. And recently, just a week or week and a half ago, 4 million people, 6 million in a week on climate strikes. And it was the action of that one person, one child, Greta Thunberg, that was, of course, there's a lot more going on, that was crucial in this. You know, the Extinction Rebellion didn't exist a year ago. The Sunrise Movement that pushed the Green New Deal through Congress in the United States didn't exist a year ago. The Radical New Green Deal didn't exist a year ago. Nobody knew who Greta Thunberg was a year ago. These are actions that led to collective responses that are changing the world. So I think this is how we have to think about it. Second question is, what radical change do you see by 2100? Well, you know, I think let's just look at existing trends with a capitalist system. By 2100, we would be, with existing trends, we would have at least a 4 degrees Celsius increase in global average temperature. I think more likely a 6 degree increase in global average temperature, and industrial civilization would be gone. People, hundreds, millions of people would be, maybe billions of people, refugees, stranded, dying from this. This is what science is telling us. They're telling us that this is catastrophic on a planetary scale if we don't make changes. Now, and what can capitalism do? Well, in all the years since we knew about global climate change, since the early 1960s, we haven't done anything. We haven't done anything in more than half a century. And now we're down to a point where we have to make changes, like decrease carbon emissions by something like 50% in 10 years. Either we have, you know, it's an objective fact, it's not an ideological fact, that either we have an ecological revolution or there is no real future for humanity. What do I think in terms of 2100? I think there will be an ecological revolution, it won't be sufficient. There'll be a reaction, and then there'll be a bigger ecological revolution, and we'll create a more sustainable world, a more just world in some respects, but we're going to have the legacy of the ecological disaster that capitalism was brought upon us. We're in the Anthropocene. We won't, even if we do all the right things, even if we have an ecological revolution, we won't be able to get the world back to where it was, not in this century. So I think, there's a lot to hope for, but there's an enormous amount of damage that has been done that's irreversible. Remember, Marx talked about how capitalism created an irreversible rift in the metabolism between human beings and nature. Well, this is not just an abstract notion. This now has occurred on a planetary level. We can't put the Arctic ice back after it melts. We can't lower the sea level once it rises. We can't do those things. We can't really put the coral reefs back beyond a certain point. So these things there are huge dangers, there's huge hope, but it's not going to be a perfect world. Somebody came back, I think came back from America, from the United States as a climate denier. There are climate deniers, including Trump, who actually used to talk about climate change and said climate change was a problem, but he decided he could get further with his right-wing track by denying climate change, but he reversed himself. He's one of those people who became a climate change, somebody who had talked about climate change to somebody who became a denier for political gain and economic gain. But climate deniers aren't really the problem anymore, Trump notwithstanding. The real problem is climate minimizers. How many times do you run into people who say, well, yeah, there's a climate problem. We're going to have to change our air conditioning or the insulation on our house, or we're going to have to, all sorts of minor things, but they're not addressing the real problem. They're not treating it as a climate emergency. It's an emergency. It isn't an ordinary problem at all. The World Meteorological Organization came out with a report last year that said we are now seeing changes in the weather that are outside of the natural variation. That is, the weather is changing. We're no longer just seeing the 100-year flood coming every year now. We're now seeing a situation where things that were supposed to be impossible are happening. Extreme weather has gone outside of the realm of natural variation, and that is really, really important. So this is an emergency situation, and it used to be you could be in an elevator, and if you didn't know what to talk about to somebody, you didn't want to talk about politics, you could talk about the weather. Now, where I live, you can't talk about the weather. People say that's too political, but we have to say, no, it's not too political. The climate issue isn't too political. This is a matter of human survival. If you're a human being, you should have to care about future generations as well as your own. If you don't, then you've given up your humanity completely.
So I'll leave to the panelists like 1 minute per discussant for their concluding note, and then like 2 or 3 minutes to John Bellamy. Just to be mindful for all of you that have the translation devices, please make sure that when you're leaving to give them back to Natalie, that is in front. And for all the international participants, please stay around because we'll be departing from here after lunch to the venue where we'll be having the school. So I'll start from the other end of the table for this round.
Merci, Stéphane. So, as a conclusion, I would like to say that the Earth will continue to exist with or without us. She knows and has the power to auto-regulate for what is best for her. And we are dispensable. And I would like to piggyback on one thing that John Bellamy first said earlier. It's we needed a woman to teach how to peel potatoes, right? And we once thought that women were left to do what was not important. Men were sent to kill and war, to make profit. That was considered important. But women were left to do things that make life happen. And that's what's more important, I think, for us to understand. Fighting for equality is a noble cause, but we need to understand that we are considered the one who provided for fresh water, for sustainable food, for nourishing our families. So women have knowledge of how to care. Women have the knowledge of how to share. So let's change the rules by which we are playing and learn how to care for what's more important for life to happen.
La jeunesse d'aujourd'hui a une mission très importante. Je parle souvent de jeunes quand je m'exprime parce que moi-même je suis jeune et à Madagascar, plus de 50% de la population est âgée de moins de 25 ans. Nous sommes donc très jeunes. Les choix de ces jeunes seront déterminants pour l'avenir du pays et aura aussi l'impact sur l'ensemble par rapport à l'évolution climatique. J'encourage les jeunes à s'intéresser de plus en plus à ce qui se passe, à être plus attentifs aux mouvements qui existent et aussi oser participer au mouvement. À Madagascar, depuis les années 1970, les jeunes ont été, entre guillemets, instrumentalisés, si je peux dire, par des mouvements. On a une force chez les jeunes, mais cette force va au profit de gens qui ont juste le soif de pouvoir, mais pas le soif de changement positif. Alors aujourd'hui, notre défi, à part de générer des mouvements, c'est aussi essayer de regagner la confiance des jeunes pour qu'ils ne se méfient plus d'être encore des instruments, mais vraiment des acteurs de changement, des acteurs de préservation de l'environnement et de l'écologie. Donc, merci aux jeunes qui sont déjà engagés et j'appelle les jeunes qui veulent s'engager davantage à ne plus hésiter et oser. Merci.
So I would just echo one of John's points to all of us as activists in the so-called global south, that we do make serious climate justice demands to the developed countries, like Greta Thunberg says, because they are the countries that have historically caused the crisis, and more importantly, they are the countries that have the economic power and technology to deal with this crisis as well. And it is important, I think, as we all know, is that we are already in the crisis. Climate change is no longer something just for the future. And I think the example of Cyclone Idai in Mozambique is a really good example to highlight the the issue of climate injustice. We're a country with historically negligible emissions, faces one of the most brutal climate catastrophes, and yet it cannot get grants from developing countries. It gets a loan from the IMF, a loan that it cannot possibly pay back, which continues to drive the country into an economic crisis. And then this is just funding it requires to deal with the emergency. But we know that as the ocean warms, there are going to be more tropical cyclones, there are going to be more cyclone idais, and Mozambique needs serious funds to be able to adapt to such a cyclone. I mean, the hurricanes that have hit the United States are stronger than the ones here, yet the devastation is incomparable. So yeah, just that we should really be strongly calling for this, for funds, grants, infrastructure funds from the developed countries. And I think there is an opportunity to link with the left in these countries. I really do take a lot of positivity from Labour under Jeremy Corbyn. The youth in Labour have just passed incredible resolutions on Green New Deals. For us to be linking with these international activists, I think is also really important. Thank you.
Menry Banquet dans la salle qui ayant beaucoup travaillé, femmes zen qui présents aujourd'hui, et que devant sa crise écologique planétaire qui nous peut faire face là, en tant qu'un zen, un activiste syndical, moi je peux souhaiter que sa conférence aujourd'hui là, les débouche sur création d'une grande alliance entre le mouvement travailleur, planter, élever, PC, sommet, zen, femmes, pour nous capables de militer d'une façon efficace pour sauver nos planètes et protéger la vie de nos planètes. Et je peux terminer par une citation. Ce qui guide un vrai révolutionnaire, c'est ce l'amour pour l'humanité. Che Guevara.
Amandla! 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 So I'll leave it to John for 5 minutes for a concluding note. And then we'll end the conference. Yeah, and with lunch that will be served outside. Is it so? It is. Yes. Okay, John.
I like what the panelists were saying because it's all about movements. It's all about organizing for change. It's all about our different interests and how they relate to this problem. The discussion of women as historically key to sustainability is very, very important. There is, there are all these discussions about ecofeminism in the ecological movement. And it's complicated because I know sociologists are very critical of the notion that women have an essentially different relation to nature in some sort of biological or God-given sense. And I support the criticism of essentialism for the most part in this respect, but the really important thing is that women who, and we're talking about the deepest depression, the longest lived depression, have been given a different social role than men historically, and ironically, in the oppression of women, women have been given the responsibility for caring for the earth, for caring for people, for reproduction in every sense of the word, for social reproduction, ecological reproduction, reproduction of the family. And but it's that that oppression that's been imposed on women is also the reason why women in the kind of society that we want, in the struggle that we're aiming at, women are leaders, are inherently going to be leaders because they understand at a very existential level more readily what it means to care for reproduction of the earth, of human beings, of society, taking care of the water, taking care of and this is actually, this is actually a key to liberation, a key to liberation to a new society, to a different relation to the earth. And so we should remember that. And in terms of youth, I didn't know that, although it doesn't surprise me particularly, that more than 50% of those in Madagascar are less than 25. But I do believe that we have to have a youth rebellion above all to make things, to carry out an ecological revolution. I've been reading, rereading Henri Lefebvre's The Explosion, which was a short book written at the time of 1968 in France. And it was all about the youth revolt at that time and how the youth thought and the revolutionary aspirations. And I had put that book aside a long time ago and thought, well, there's nothing really relevant here now. It seems like a distant age, at a time where youth were in revolt and were teaching us a new way of living in the world. And that we all remember in terms of 1968 in Paris. But now in the context of the youth-led climate justice struggle, this, the ecological revolution really that's happening, I went back and I looked at The Explosion and what some of the things that Lefebvre said about the kinds of consciousness, revolutionary consciousness that can come from youth, and the readiness to get rid of all of the trash of the ages, the exploitative. And I think that this is what we need now, and a sense of necessity, a sense of that changes have to be really massive. And this is happening on a bigger scale than I've ever seen before. I mean, elementary school children going in protest marches, I've never seen that before. This is a big, because they're learning that they have no future otherwise. They're becoming radical at a very early age. And it's not just Greta Thunberg, it's happening all over. And so this is very hopeful, and I think it's correct that the youth are key. But I went to a sunrise movement. The sunrise movement was organizing a rally for the latest climate strike in my town, and I was just as a speaker. And the sunrise movement intervened and said, well, he's too old. We don't want anybody who's speaking who's over 20. And I'm a long ways beyond 20, I tell you. I'm ancient. So I thought that was a little odd, because actually the generations have to speak to each other. Maybe the older generations have something to do and have some knowledge of the structure of the system and past revolts, because everyone was once young, right? Maybe they have some experience that they can bring to bear without dominating over the movement, which is, but to say that only the young should speak was a problem. They later put me on a panel that they had. But on the panel, the young people there were saying, well, we've got to talk to our political leaders about this. And I was thinking, well, it's all very well intended, but they didn't actually know what the problem was, because just going to talk to the political leaders, or even re-electing new leaders, is not what we should be seeing as the main issue right now. I like the third question was talking about developed countries, third comment about developed countries having the responsibility, and I think that's true, and we should all be involved in this, and it has to be a mass movement. And I gave you that chronology, and it was all about things happening basically in Britain and the United States, but the momentum is amazing for a year. But why talk about Britain and the United States? Why not talk about the global South, where actually the most revolutionary movements are going to emerge? Because I believe that I've argued for a long time that we need an environmental proletariat, and the environmental proletariat is most developed in the global South. That is workers who recognize that the problem is their material conditions, and their material conditions are no longer simply economic, they're ecological, and they can't be separated. When that happens, you have more radical movements, like in the early 19th century in England, I can't talk about that now. But the developed countries, we have to remember that they're the ones who are still have the highest per capita emissions. They are responsible. Climate emissions, carbon in the atmosphere is cumulative, and they put most of it up there, and they have the wealth to do something about it without sacrificing the population. They have the technology, and the rich countries have to reduce their emissions by 10% or more per year, or we won't make it. So we have to recognize that the problem lies there, but that's always also integrated with imperialism. It's integrated with the issue of how some countries are affected more than others. The northern climates are relatively, they're going to be hit later. They're not as affected as the low latitudes. And what are they doing? What are they doing in the United States and Canada? In the United States and Canada, the number of pipelines for oil and natural gas have increased by 3 times since 1995. And they have 3 times they're building 3 times as many oil and natural gas pipelines as they did in 1995, and it's accounting for 40% of the total world pipelines. I was on the Sunrise panel the other day. I said we shouldn't be building pipelines at all. They were criticizing the pipelines for leaking. I said it's not just that they're leaking, it's that if we want to get rid of fossil fuels, we shouldn't be spending $1.2 trillion over the next 2 years building pipelines for fossil fuels. It's as simple as that. The world is the wealthy countries are going the wrong way. They're promoting fracking. The U.S. is now the largest oil exporter in the world, and fossil fuel exporter, and this has to stop somehow. And the only way it'll stop is people mobilize. Now, mobilization could start from the top, like with the Green New Deal, where that's what they're saying. They need a 10-year mobilization, and not just mobilization of technology and money. They're talking about mobilizing whole populations, the whole population. Can you imagine? But that really won't happen. It has to be the self-mobilization of people. Can you imagine what would happen in any country if the whole population mobilized to change the structure of production and consumption and environmental destruction? If collectively, but also everybody involved started making the changes necessary, that could be done, and you could solve, like the United States could have rationing. It was popular during the Second World War. You could reduce the consumption you could say some resources are limited. You could ration. It's just a possibility, and that's more equitable than trying to price your way out of the problem, which always hits the poor. You could do things. You could mobilize like the whole population, like in wartime, to deal with the ecological problem. But the powers that be don't want to do that. Why? Because if the population is mobilized, they always start talking about social justice. They always start going after the production system itself. They always want to change the relations of power. And that's the truth. But actually, that's what has to happen. We have to have a mass mobilization, and it has to question the structures of power. And that will evolve. It may not win, it may not be successful enough, but that's the direction we're going, because more and more people are realizing there isn't any choice. The last question was, the last comment was my favorite because you know it summarized, I think, everything I was trying to say, probably more succinctly. So I won't make any comment except that I thought that was perfect. And we, you know, Robert J. Lifton, a famous he's a famous science analyst, psychologist. He wrote a book called The Nazi Doctors, and he wrote a book about Hiroshima. I once invited him to my school to talk about on the 50th anniversary of Hiroshima, and he's very concerned about this issue of human beings dividing themselves off, accepting atrocities on the one hand, and then going home and being good family members, right? That's what the Nazi Doctors was all about. But how we treated nuclear holocaust was very similar, and how we treat what's happening today is very similar. We create human beings that think they can retain their humanity while wreaking the most terrible destruction. And nowadays we're facing omnicide. It's the word that we use to declare the death of everything, which is really of life, the killing of all life as we know it. And we pretend that somebody can be part of the omnicide machine and still retain their humanity. They really can't. And we have to confront that. And how do you deal with it? The fact that so many people don't act, so many people are resistant, so many people are minimizers. Well, it's just like in the civil rights struggle in the United States. It's like any radical movement. How do you change people's views? And somebody raised this question where you don't actually talk to them. I mean, you can talk to them. You don't actually try to persuade them by talking to them. You didn't go to the Jim Crow South and have conversations with racists and say, you know, you really need to have a different point of view. That's that kind of liberal way of doing things. What radicals do is they go sit in on a lunch encounter, right? They confront. They confront and show a different kind of necessity, a different kind of struggle. Forces people to face their values. That's what every picket line does. Force you to face your values, confront in various ways. The Extinction Rebellion in England, in a matter of a month, by closing down London, the center of London, by the demonstrations they had, they actually got England to declare, the United Kingdom to declare a climate emergency, just based on what they did in 1 month by turning the whole country upside down. And that's the kind of movement we need. You have to confront, you have to have a movement that's mobilized, that confronts, and you have to say, yeah, these movements, climate change is real, but the cause of it is capitalism. The cause of it is the social injustice that we experience. So we fight that, and we fight the carbon emissions all at the same time. And it's serious in the United States, and this is my last point. It's so serious that in slavery in the United States, the slaves were actually the major economic asset in the United States in 1860. And the slaves being freed meant they, as a result of the Civil War, meant that huge, those assets went away. And they didn't do what they did with Britain and pay off the slaveholders because of the Civil War. But the assets associated with fossil fuels, the assets in the ground that they own are equal to something like $28 trillion now. And they're not going to give that up without a social war, right? A real struggle. It's not something that's going to happen by talking or by electing politicians, although you want to elect the right politicians, but it's only a mass movement mobilization in all the countries of the world and in each country that can turn this sort of thing around. And it's fun. It's heartwarming for me to talk about this, because talking to you, I feel like you already know these things, and I'm just underscoring what you know and what you're going to do. Thank you.
Okay. Merci beaucoup, John. Thank you so much. And really thank you, because we know at CARES that there has been like personal challenges, and it was not that easy for you to be here with us. And really we want to thank you for taking time to be here with us. And we really value your writings, your critical analysis, and the fact that you've really taken time to be here with us for this conference and for the coming days. Thank you again. And thank you to our panelists. So there's Fanny, Ideal, Bruce, and Julian. Thanks to the translators. And thanks. Okay. Okay. So just to make sure, the questions in the box will go with us. So you'll have time to dig in, and if you want to respond to that, you can still at the school. So I would like to thank Sébastien as well, who was working on the live with the team, the CARES team, and all the organizations that we, along with CARES, collaborated in organizing this conference. So we'll be having lunch outside. For all of you who have the translation devices, please make sure that you hang over your devices to Natalie before leaving. And for our comrades that will be participating in the school, please make sure that you're still around, because the bus will depart from here after lunch to get us back to the venue of the school. Thank you so much.
À Maurice, nos trésors naturels sont en péril. Notre modèle de développement, la surconsommation, l'urbanisation non planifiée, le manque d'engagement politique, La pollution et l'indifférence à l'égard des zones écologiquement sensibles sont des réalités qui représentent de vrais dangers écologiques. Chaque jour, citoyens mauriciens, nous faisons face à de nombreux problèmes. Les coupures d'eau sont de plus en plus fréquentes, les montées d'eau causent des inondations de plus en plus rapides et dévastatrices. Les prix des aliments flambent, il y a moins de poissons locaux dans les rayons, leurs prix augmentent. Les insectes disparaissent à vue d'œil, les pesticides envahissent nos assiettes et notre corps. Notre flore et faune endémiques sont en voie de disparition. Les éboulements et les glissements de terrain constituent des risques de plus en plus présents. Pourtant, en 2009, le ministère de l'Environnement et la NDU lancent une étude menée par des experts mauriciens et internationaux sur les zones écologiquement sensibles de Maurice, le ISC Study. Une étude payée avec les taxes des citoyens mauriciens. Ce rapport mentionne que les lois mauriciennes ne sont pas adaptées à la protection de ces zones sensibles. Il existe des lacunes dans la protection juridique, une absence des seuils pour encadrer les décisions ministérielles, les planifications environnementales, les évaluations de l'impact sur l'environnement, ainsi que la mise en vigueur des lois sont inadéquates. Et au final, chacun fait un peu ce qu'il veut. Ce qui ressort de ce rapport est l'implémentation d'un ISC Bill, un projet de loi visant à mieux identifier, protéger, conserver, réhabiliter et gérer nos écosystèmes, habitats pour de nombreux êtres vivants. 14 types d'ISC ont été identifiés, analysés, classifiés et cartographiés selon leur vulnérabilité. Dans le monde, les ISC sont un outil de gestion des écosystèmes. Ils fournissent des services qui ont été regroupés en 3 fonctions: la protection et la conservation, l'approvisionnement et la régulation, ainsi que des services culturels. Les problèmes auxquels nous faisons face sont en lien direct avec les ISC. Les pentes raides, les forêts, les nappes phréatiques, les rivières, les lacs, les puits d'eau douce, les wetlands, les dunes de sable, les herbiers marins, les récifs et les îlots.
Je tiens un petit peu sur la scène, je finis à 5 bananes, je finis à 7 bateaux à l'époque. Et après ça, je finis à 7 moteurs, aujourd'hui, je peux faire pour l'eau. Et pas besoin de début.
Malheureusement, pour le moment, mon réseau est 70% pour un mot. Le lagon, hautement, même qui, bons affaires, nous peut dire, les maris critiques. La plupart des touristes qui viennent, c'est bien apprécier qu'il y a un environnement, l'environnement reste naturel.
Et comme nous disons, nous disons de la cité qui nous contre un hôtel ici, parce qu'ici, nous avons un hôtel ici, il faut détruire la nature, complètement. Parce que là, nous prenons beaucoup de terrain, nous avons beaucoup plus de mangroves que de terrain.
Globalement, il y a une perte de biodiversité partout dans le monde, mais ce qui est intéressant de voir, c'est que Maurice est à l'avant-garde de sa destruction de biodiversité. C'est-à-dire, nous, un dernier pays qui va humain colonisé, et nous, parmi les plus détruits. Ça veut dire que sa destruction qui est passée là, elle est passée d'un moment très très court. Avec nos connaissances aujourd'hui, nous n'avons pas besoin de continuer à faire une faute qui nous fait dans le passé. Nous sommes capables d'avancer dans un avenir meilleur, préserver l'environnement, parce que quand nous préservons l'environnement, qui nous veut faire exactement en fin de compte, nous veut préserver nous-mêmes.
Aujourd'hui, nous tirons la sonnette d'alarme sur l'état critique de nos trésors naturels. Le ISC Bill est resté trop longtemps dans les tiroirs du gouvernement, trop longtemps caché et oublié. Nos députés ont le devoir de protéger nos trésors naturels afin que nous, Mauriciens, cessons de souffrir des problèmes en lien direct avec leur indifférence à l'égard des ISC. Ne soyons plus spectateurs de la dégradation de notre environnement, de notre pays. Citoyens, nous avons besoin de vous. Nous avons besoin que le ISC Bill soit mis à l'agenda de nos députés. Nous avons besoin que nos représentants s'engagent pour discuter et voter le ISC Bill au Parlement afin de préserver l'héritage que nous laissons à nos enfants.
ISC Bill now. Mauricien, médecin, réagir Zodi, Boudjimé.